I don't know. I'm a shopper. But yeah, no, but that's good.
Yeah, you know, online shopping's pretty good. I kind of prefer online shopping when the stores are pretty busy.
That's true. Yeah, well, I actually, I got a new laptop this weekend because
That's good.
I've had one for my old laptop. I haven't used it for over a year. That's basically it. And so I was like, I guess I should get one instead of keep using my old laptop.
Yeah.
I thought that's the time.
Yeah, and I also got a bit of lab other stuff that I really needed. You'll see it. I can shop as much as I usually do. I saw a lot of Christmas shopping. Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out what to get my parents stuff. That's because I was an item. And
The time is 4:30 p.m. The Pelican Rapids City Council meeting of 30 November 2021 is called to order. I'd ask if you have not signed in your name on the clipboard by the back door, if you would please do so before you leave. And if you have a cell phone, please put it on vibrate. Roll call. Danielle?
Councilmember Steve Strand.
Here.
Councilmember Kevin Ballard.
Here.
Councilmember Kurt Markgraf.
Here.
Councilmember Steve Foster.
Here.
And Mayor Brent Fraser.
Here. I want to welcome each and every one of you here in the council chambers this evening, also those that will be joining us at the booth. And our city council meetings are seen on channel 14 on Wednesday evening. A note about tonight's meeting, council meeting, there's 2 public hearings that will take place during our city council meeting this evening. A couple announcements for the next couple of weeks. This Thursday, December 2nd, 5 to 7 p.m. here at City Hall, Pelican Rapids Comprehensive Plan Update. So hope everybody can attend that. It's 5 to 7 p.m. this Thursday. And our next City Council meeting is Tuesday, December 14th at 4:30 p.m. here at City Hall. Any other announcements? Hearing none, if we all please stand for the pledge of
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item number 2 is citizens' comments. Is there anyone here for citizens' comments? Anyone? Seeing none.
Oh, I would like to make a comment, Mr. Chair. Citizen? I'm not a citizen.
Any agenda item or not?
It's on an agenda item. Are you going to accept comment during the
Yes,
agenda item?
yes,
Okay,
yes.
then I'll reserve my comment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Item number 3 is additions, deletions to the agenda. I have an addition. Item number 22, Pheasants Forever raffle. Item number 22 is Pheasants Forever raffle. Any other additions or deletions? Motion second, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Item number 4 is the approval of consent agenda, which I'll read. Item number 4 is approval of council minutes of November 9th, 2021, and also the work session minutes of November 12th, 2021. 4B is approval of accounts payable listing. 4C is recreational gaming license for 2022 Pelican Rapids Pool Hall Inc., Chester, Madison. Item number 4D1 is liquor store report, which is in your packet. Item number 4D2 is utilities report, which is in your packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. Motion second, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All the same, motion carries. Item number 5 is 2024 street project, and we have a few representatives Here to speak on that from MnDOT this evening, we have Tom Pace, the District 4 Project Manager, Thomas Lundberg, Assistant District Engineer, and Travis Weaver from KLJ Engineering out of West Fargo. Is there anyone else, Tom, with your group?
I think we're all here.
Okay, I'll turn the mic over to you then. What we'll do this evening, Tom will make a presentation to us. The City Council will ask comments, and when we're done with our questions or comments, then we'll turn it over to the audience here this evening if they have any comments or questions.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. I believe we've seen this presentation numerous times. I guess I wasn't planning on presenting it again, but I guess we're here, myself, Tom, and Travis, we're here to basically answer any questions that you guys still might have or anybody else has. This at the council meeting tonight, we would like the council to make a motion either to basically partner with MnDOT or not partner with MnDOT. And as you know, we've worked on this job for, over about 2 years. We've spent a lot of money, MnDOT taxpayers to design this project. And we need to make sure the city's on board with us or not be on board with us. So that's why kind of what the gist of tonight's evening is. I know it's a pretty tough decision that you guys have to think about, but I'm here to basically answer questions. I'm sure you've seen everything numerous times. So myself, Tom, or Travis, we can answer anything that people have, and unless you want to see that thing again. I'm not sure if you do or don't, but.
Any questions for Tom? Oh, yeah.
All right.
So should the council vote to not partner with MnDOT tonight, does that push the project? I think Mr. Wall said something like the original project date was 2028.
Yes.
So if we were to not go forward, or if we were to not partner tonight, would that push the project back to 2028?
It would.
Still be on the 2024 type?
No, it would. As you said, Mr. Ballard, the project was at 2028, and after the city council approached MnDOT to advance the project with the intent to partner with the city in 2024. If the city decides not to partner with MnDOT, then yes, we'd push the project back to 2028. Come in and probably do the exact same fix in 28 as we are proposing in 24. So, that year, 2028, is when our life service of the road pavement expires. That's when the road needs to be fixed, is in 2028.
And then I know the number that's been thrown at us is 6 parking spots that we're going to lose for 59.
Yes.
Do we have a total parking spot loss number for the project, including the 108 stops?
We don't. It's easier to calculate the ones on 59 because they were striped. The ones on 108 were not striped. So we estimated them. I know, Travis, you had estimated a number.
I don't remember for each alternative offhand what they were exactly, but it was probably about in that same ballpark. It was probably a little bit more loss on 108 just with the configurations. So I think the total is less than 20, certainly, but I don't recall right offhand. I can probably even try to find out exactly what those numbers are.
Any other questions?
Do we have to decide on between different options tonight, between 1 and 2?
For downtown?
Yeah.
It would be nice. Like I say, we're trying. Job is to be built in basically over 2 years. So we're kind of on the hold for the downtown portion until the council helps decide what they want to do in between the roundabouts. Either it's going to be 12-foot driving, 10-foot parking, or if you want the on-street bike lane, which I don't think you do, but if you did, that would be 11-foot driving and 8-foot parking. Or, we have a new proposal last time we presented with a raised median down the middle, which is 12-foot driving, 9-foot parking, and a 4-foot median down the middle with mountable curb. So basically having a wider section. That's one thing we did, since last time we tried to make the width wider because the city asked for a little wider lanes down there. So the one thing that CO would accept is the raised median down the middle. Same thing they did in St. James. That project was the exact same thing with raised median down the middle. But in there, they had 11-foot driving lanes and 9-foot parking. So here we're going with 4-foot raised median, 12-foot driving, and 9-foot parking is one of the options. So yes, if you could do that tonight, that would be great.
We have 3 options to choose from?
There basically only 2. The 2 that central office would accept. The 12-foot driving, 10-foot parking, or 12-foot driving, 9-foot parking with the raised center median. If you want wider width, that's the one that you could choose.
Does it have to be raised?
It does. It does. The intent of the raised median is to slow cars down. If we want a 4-foot, there's a paved median, it would not serve the purpose of slowing down cars. It would not be as friendly to bicyclists or pedestrians, because vehicles will still be driving through. So yeah, some comments we did hear, is that right now today with 18-foot driving lanes, it is like a sea of pavement. The cars are going all over the place. You're not really going where they should be. The summer after we striped it, it was better. Cars are in the driving lane, but the wider lanes, the cars go faster, and they do. And that would kind of defeat the purpose of having, a pedestrian-friendly town with cars going through faster than they should. So yes, that's one thing they would not accept is just a painted median.
Say, Tom, could you mention the height of it?
Yep, good question. Yeah, the center median, we're proposing, it could be up to 4 inches, but we're proposing a 2 inches height, which with the mountable curbs. Basically, just a little bit of, that's pretty short, 2 inches. It's not like it's a big, 4 or 6 inch curb. It's 2 inches with mountable curbs, so you can just drive over it if you need to. And easier for snow plowing.
You would allow us to have just a 2-inch rise on that?
Yes, we would.
Okay, because I went down to St. James and looked at it.
Yes.
And there are some problems with the 6-inch rise in there that,
Yeah, 2 inches is what we would get down to 2 inches, correct? So, as a compromise to the city.
And then maybe Tom just mentioned the splitter.
Would you step up here, Tom? Yeah.
I was just gonna say, the splitter islands by the roundabouts are a little bit higher. So those are like 4, aren't they, Tom?
Yeah, they could be the 4-inch splitter islands at the roundabout, so.
John, as I understand it, we are to choose between 1 of 5 and 5 of 5? Is that right? Well, to figure this out.
1 of 5.
option 1 and option 5, right?
Well, lower right, I don't know what number.
Okay, I got sheet numbers there. Okay, yep. Yep. That's the one that we're currently designing, is a 12-foot driving, 10-foot parking. That's the one that the city set the petition to MnDOT on back in September, because it's not really in favor of these parking lane widths. Or, excuse me, that's 12 and 9, so we had 12 and 10 back then, so.
This is the second one.
This is the second one. Yeah, yep, the center median.
Is that 5 of 5?
Yes.
Yep,
So you had 12 and 10 without the center meter.
correct.
And what did that do to the bike lanes?
The bike lanes are the shared use path concept. They are behind the curb, they're above. And both the options that we like, they're not down below in traffic. So yes, they're above.
Tom, I don't see dimensions for the bump outs, like between the roundabouts.
Dimension of the bump outs?
For crosswalk, I don't see any of that information.
Yeah, there is one mid-block crossing where the crosswalk is today. We are planning on putting bump outs there.
What's the size?
With the size of it,
It should be on that drawing.
it probably is if you zoom in.
I zoomed in and it just.
Yeah. The exact dimension, is probably not listed on there. 'Cause this is the high-level conceptual drawing. A lot of those details will work out in design. What this shows, going out to the parking lane, it won't be that wide. Last summer we had the demo project, we had it striped out there, and we had a lot of comments on that. And we can bring that distance in, so that probably 4 or 5 feet from the stripe line, probably 16 feet or so is probably a good distance we'll look at putting in there, so 16 feet from the center of the highway is probably where we'll fit someplace in there.
And what's the length of it?
What is the width of it?
Oh, okay, width.
Yeah. I'm looking at that, I'd say it's about 50 feet.
You say 50 or
50.
50?
50. Well, of course, with that, it'll be not so far. It'll be shorter. If you have shorter from the curb, it'll be shorter. So I'm going to say probably 35 feet. Probably a good guess it'll be in. So about a parking stall and a half or so. We have to have those tapers so we can get our snow plows around them and good safe taper to get around there so they're not just an abrupt edge. So So that's the least we can do is that what taper had shown there is 1 to 3s.
I must have misunderstood at the last, when this was presented the first time. I thought the median was 4 inches.
It was, yeah. Actually, the traffic engineer wants 4 inches. And we're actually working with geometrics, and they will allow us to go down to 2 inches based on a lot of comments we hear down here. So 4 feet wide, 2 inches in height, there's a compromise that we're willing to do in downtown Pelican Rapids. If you want 4 inches, we can. I mean, but, I mean, 2 inches is what we're trying to compromise on, so yeah. And being shorter, of course, it's a lot easier for transferring vehicles. You can drive on them if you need to, and for snow plowing and everything else. They still will slow cars down because they'll be up for elevation, so they serve a lot of purposes. Our traffic engineer wants 4 inches, but we decided that 2 is something that we can live with. So it's a long block, which makes a difference. So higher is definitely safer for for the peds.
Is that accurate that what are they called, splitter medians?
Yep,
The splitter medians and the center median are connected?
they would be, yes. They would be. Actually, there'd be a gap. There would be a gap for that driveway, which you see right there in the middle. There'll be a gap there, so that can go in and out. So yeah, that'll be changed. So.
But there's a 2-inch difference between the splitter median and
The median, right. Right. Yep, that is correct. Yeah, that 4 inches is nice for the splitters. It's a good pedestrian safety refuge. So people can walk across there. If they need to stop there, they can. So that's definitely a benefit there. And it's all still mountable. All this, the center island, the splitters, everything is mountable. The medians, the splitters, the center island, so cars can still drive over them if need to. Big trucks, snow plows, whatever it is, school buses. Everything is mountable in between the curbs.
Other questions?
Don.
I just have to clarify. So the splitter is 4, but the center island of the roundabout is 2?
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Councilman Foster, do you have any other observations on your trip to St. James?
I got a whole bunch of them. There's photographs around here somewhere, I don't know if Donna's got those.
We can look at them if you want to.
Yeah, let's bring those up. Well, he's doing that. I got a hold of the mayor down there and talked to him, or emailed him back and forth, and then I went down on a week ago yesterday and looked at what they've done down there. And they put these in 2018. Both the mayor, the street superintendent, and the city administrators had people like them. It took some getting used to, but they were happy with them. I was there at noon hour. There was a lot of traffic going through there. One thing they have, this first photograph, is they've got reverse diagonal parking. We're all familiar with diagonal parking where you drive in and then back out. Well, in this case there, on one side of the street, they back in and then drive out, which is supposed to be safer. Now, we probably don't have the width set up to do something like this. Maybe over on the street by the Catholic Church it could be done, but that's neither here nor there right now. But you can see this. This is where they backed in. Where the bus is at, he has just gone through the roundabout down there at that end of the block. They have the raised median down there, and that'll show up in some of the other pictures. I guess let's go to the next one here. Yeah, this is another view of the street here. Over on the left, you can see it's a 6-inch raised median there. And they had some problems with snow removal on that, but they've also got some safety problems because being a small town like Pelican, people just walk across the street. They don't go to the corner, they don't go to the walkway, they just walk across the street. When it gets icy and slippery, they slip and fall on that median because it's raised and it's sloped. And that was pointed out to me several times as I was talking to people down there. This is the other intersection, and you can see the sign. There's a small parking lot right across kitty corner from where I was standing there. Cars were going through there fairly rapidly. It was kind of amazing to watch. One of the problems they have, I mentioned the snow removal with the raised stuff, but one of the other problems they've had is when trucks cut the right-hand corners too sharp, they hit the sign. And you can see that sign, that highway sign over on the right is bent over. Well, that sign's been replaced 24 times. So he said that one regularly gets smacked. They had another one that got completely broken off. It was, but that's one of the problems they've had. And the other problem they had is occasionally trucks will go through this and they try and follow the roundabout too closely so they get too wide. There was one truck that did this while I was there. There was another truck, a semi, that was going to the elevator. They missed the entrance to the elevator, so they came up to the roundabout, did a 180, and she had to back up a few feet just to get the nose of the truck around to where she could do the 180. And she didn't delay traffic 15 seconds. It was kind of amazing to watch because traffic continued to move through the roundabout where they didn't have to, where they weren't blocked by this truck. But the truck was in and out of there, backed up a few feet, and was able to make the turn and went through the roundabout amazingly quick, I thought. I was really impressed by it. One of the things that I thought about on the way back is I should have paced these off because it appeared to me these roundabouts or these intersections are actually a little bit smaller than the ones here. And I don't know if you guys can give us those figures or not, but to me those intersections seemed a bit smaller than they are our intersections here.
Yeah, I'm not sure the signs are in St. James. I don't know if, Travis, you have that handy? Or?
I can probably get it. I think we modeled these initially off the same dimensions. The one in St. James is a little bit oblong. It's not perfectly circular. You probably noticed that. So that's a little bit different dimensionally, but the other one is probably the same size as that we'd be looking at East 108, just because that's a tighter intersection.
All right. Let's go to the next picture here. This was in that previous, I think it was the previous one, there was the nose of this pickup was in there. This is the same pickup going through the intersection. He was pulling a big equipment trailer that he had loaded with wood and rafters and other things, and bing bang, he was through the intersection. So one of the things I want to point out, and there'll be some more photographs of this, is colored concrete. They put colored concrete on the splitter median, the median down between the roundabouts itself, and then along the edge along the sidewalk. And when you drove into town, I drove through these. The first thing I did when I got to town was I drove through these, and that was very obvious. It was, I mean, it gave good visual guidance. It was very obvious. I mean, So let's go to the next one. I don't think there's anything I can add to this. This section here, this splitter is raised 6 inches. And you can see they've had it scratched, it's scored up, it's kind of beat up from the snowplows going over that. And they've had some problems with the snowplows, and one of the things they've done is they had to adjust to figure this out. So when they push the snow off, now they push it off to the side rather than down the middle of the street like they used to do. And that creates some other problems with parking, but if they can get in there quickly, they can get it out of there, and then they have to sweep off these raised sections because the ice will build up on there. That's one of the problems they've had on that. And now they're equipped to do that. They've got a sweeper on their, I don't know, truck or whatever. I didn't ask them specifically on that which kind of equipment it was, but they've got a sweeper on there which they can handle it. They also blow their snow into a truck to get rid of it. You know, we load it in with payloaders from either Aggies or our own, or, you know, where they've got a blower to do that.
A question on this. Do you typically, because it looks like in this one, what you mentioned, they mix the color in the concrete as opposed to just painting it, so that when it gets all scraped up like this, it still somehow keeps that color, thus keeping the outline of it?
Yeah, when I was down there, they talked about that. It said originally the highway department wanted to just put the dye on top of the concrete. And their street department said, no, mix it in, and they did. And it, so where it's all scored up, it's still this nice reddish color, which to me was just a common sense idea that I guess if you hadn't been through that, you wouldn't think of that, but they did it, and it was, you know. Here you can see the crosswalks, the way they're marked, and they're marked on both sides of the street like this. I walked out there with my camera taking pictures, and everybody stopped, nobody ran over me. And then you can see the colored concrete there, and they, you know, that was, like I said, it just gave very good visual guidance.
The picture doesn't show it, but maybe you guys would know. So this car is sitting, if that car is stopped, and there's a pedestrian that wants to walk across there, so the car stops in that position, is there enough room for another vehicle to go between the car and the center island of that?
For a standard vehicle, yeah. It's at least 15 feet, the crosswalk's 15 feet past the roundabout, at least. So there's enough for a vehicle to pick up to stop in front of the crosswalk, and yet traffic still move around.
You see that sign is bent there again, so. There was a crosswalk there the way it was set up, and the crosswalk was level all the way across, it wasn't raised. And
So this colored brick right here that seems to be lining the whole project.
yeah.
And it looks like it's about 2 feet wide in from the curb. What was the purpose of that going down a different color? For any special reason? Is that a buffer zone? If you could describe that a little bit maybe.
Yeah, I'm sure it's there just for visual quality. People can see the difference and slow down. Yeah, that's what it's there for, so, yep. I'm not sure if they have a sidewalk or a shaded path on the top of the curb. I'm not sure, Travis, if you know.
I don't on St. James, but you know, typically something like that off the curb, it's a nice aesthetic. It does provide a little bit of that buffer where people can differentiate between where they should be walking or if they're getting too close to live traffic.
And they decided to use colored brick as opposed to colored concrete?
Oh, so it's stamped.
It's colored
Stamped.
concrete, it's just that stamp.
Yeah.
Yeah, stamp.
It's colored concrete.
It's actually pretty common. A lot of cities do that.
The roundabouts in St. James are the same size as what's being proposed here.
Okay.
Yep. So the circular one there is the same size for both of the ones that are proposed in Pelican.
Is that 4 feet also, that picture?
That's that 4-foot median.
It is.
Going down to the other roundabout.
But that's,
But here it's 6, right?
here it's 6 inches.
6 inches tall.
Yeah.
But 4 feet wide.
4 feet wide.
And then, this is the part of the bump out here.
Oh.
They put benches at this end of the street, and I think at the other end of the street. The bump outs were more rectangular, where we've talked about more of a, for lack of a better word, pointed kind of a bump out. So they had these benches and things with the planters there, and you know, I mean, the sidewalks were all new. It was so nice just to walk down the street. You know, the sidewalks were just great. They was just, you know, no brokenness, no unevenness. It was just great on that respect. So.
Tom, the bump out over here is kind of hard to see because it's across the street there, but is that about how far the bump outs in Pelican would go as in relation to the Pelican parking? Or?
Yeah, that's about right. Probably halfway through the park car, or so maybe a little bit more.
I don't know if that helps you kind of see, Steve, what you were referring to. You're mid-block, but...
I think we decided to keep it, I think it was at least 2 feet plus the 2-foot gutter pan. So from the edge of the driving lane, it'd be 4 feet to the face of the curb for the bump outs.
Yeah,
a little bit more
yeah.
space.
Those are pretty small, which is good, so. Yeah.
And then that's just a view of what that printed brick cement looks like.
Oh.
I don't know if there's any questions or... The mayor did mention that, and both the street superintendent, is when they got these made, they shut down the street for a day or something, and they rented golf carts and let people drive through them as they wanted to. They had a lot of educational things, and there's things on YouTube about all of this, and all kinds of things on YouTube if you're interested in looking there. But, and then you can just type in St. James Roundabout or something, and it'll pop up.
On that bent up sign, you said how many times did they replace them? 24. 24, so you'd be talking about, that's a 3-year-old project, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about 8, 9 months out of the year having a whacked out sign.
Yeah.
Each time you replace it.
Yeah.
Your sign though, right?
Yeah.
That sign for
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's probably more sign placement problem than
yeah, we
Yeah.
other
try to
problem.
move it someplace better, hopefully, so.
Well, thank you, Councilman Foster. I did call the mayor down in St. James also. That was before you had apparently been there, because he had mentioned, he voiced the same thing that Councilman Foster said. He said they had several people that were against the project, and after it was completed, most everybody was satisfied with the workmanship and what they ended up with. Any other questions from the council to any other questions before we go to the audience?
Oh, sorry, I'll wait till that ends.
In your packet, there was a letter, there was 2 letters. There's one from Richard Westby, who's here this evening. There's also one from County Commissioner Wayne Johnson, who's also here this evening, and I'm not sure if they want to address those letters.
Rick?
No, I'll just sit here and listen.
The reason I wrote it is because I don't like upfront talking. So, would you like me to?
Yeah.
May I approach the microphone?
Yeah, if you use the mic, that'd be great.
Okay. Thanks for the opportunity, Mr. Mayor, Councilman. I know this is a difficult decision and a contentious project, and trust me, I recognize that. I just wanted to share with you that we talked about almost 4 years ago in the letter, and for those who would like a copy of my letter, it's public information. If you want one, I can send you one or whatever. But I just wanted to share with the council that Otter Tail County has done its best, and especially myself, I've done my best to bring economic opportunity to Pelican Rapids. It's my home community too. We've brought and shared with the apartment building out west, that I know there was people against. They thought we were bringing the wrong kind of people to town. They thought a lot of negative things were going to happen, and yet we have 4 firefighters living there, a local pharmacist lives there, a number of teachers live there that no longer had, that previously had nowhere to live, so they chose not to teach in Pelican Rapids. Officer Statham sitting around the corner. I don't believe there's been a whole lot of issues with the new apartment building out on 108. And so I think it's easy to look for the negative, but I think we need to keep in mind the positive. Otter County's been here to partner with Pelican Rapids, with economic development, with moving forward. The HRA went in. I'm the chair of the HRA. We've got over $35,000 invested in a property that, and this is in the letter, so that's why I'm sharing. We've got over $35,000 invested in a property that one of two things would have sat idly for Lord knows how long, or someone would have purchased it, scabbed it together, and tried to create some kind of a rental home. And neither one of those was a good solution to what was going on here in town. I know there's been concern about the bike traffic. I just spoke with the mayor of Battle Lake. There was concerns down there too. They have doubled the attendance at Glendalough Park. They have also doubled the amount of business going into their cafes and businesses, and added 3 new businesses since 3 years ago when they built the trail. And Otter Tail County was a part of that. And trust me, I was a part of some of the issues and contention and those things. And a lot of those fears have faded away. So I just want to say that it's easy to see the negative. I wanted to share with you that we still want to be partners. We want to be the city's partner. We want to move the entire, a rising tide lifts all boats. The more we can rise Pelican Rapids, the more we can rise the area, the better Otter Tail County does. Our census numbers are up. I believe that's intentional. I believe that's because we are trying to create opportunity for everyone in our community. And so I will take questions regarding my letter, but I wanted, since I was asked to address my letter, that, you know, you have copies. If someone else wants a copy, I can certainly provide that. And then I do have, and I don't know if this is appropriate, comments regarding your decision this evening, but I can sort of wait until other people ask questions. So, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Fire Chief Steve, did you have something you'd like to add?
Oh, yeah, thank you.
That's okay.
Thanks for the opportunity. My biggest concern is with emergency vehicles, you know, other than being a citizen that uses that thoroughfare. With the 2 options, I come up with basically a 10-foot center coming down, as we explained in, I think the meeting was in September. And you guys have, everybody that lives in this town has witnessed when a police car, a fire truck, an ambulance, whatever it may be, comes through town, they basically just go down the center and everybody kind of pulls to the right, and it works very well. With the numbers that are presented now, with 10-foot parking, 12 driving, gives us 10 feet roughly, which is plenty. And I think both scenarios do that. I do have a little bit of, I do like the one without the raise though. Not that our trucks can't go over it. It just is a preference, personal preference. But I think that the state going back and pushing our lane widths out really took care of my concerns as far as being able to get through town. Obviously, traffic is moving a little quicker, so we shouldn't have as much jam up like we do. I do have a little trouble with the raised ones. We're putting in roundabouts to move traffic, but yet we're putting in a raise to slow traffic down. And I don't know, driving down that, if it's going to be confusing for people too. All of a sudden here you see an emergency vehicle come straddling that center way. I don't know if you had an opportunity to talk to St. James people about that at all. If it might not be an issue down there, but it's just something that in my world that trying to be aware of. And for the future, I think the whole project as a whole is going to be very, very nice for Pelican Rapids. But I think Tom had called me and we had discussed some things, and I think their effort to come back and give a little pushback to their bosses was good, because it got us really that lane width, because we were down pretty tight, but now with this basically a 10-foot. So I don't know, anybody have any questions or other thoughts? Steve?
So Trevor, you're okay with either option?
Yeah, I am. Like I say, I like the non-raised for a few reasons, but I think they would all work, especially when it's only 2 inches high. I would have a concern if it was 6 inches. I think our engine one would be scraping the belly pan, right, Brian? I mean, that sucker isn't very high, and if you add a little snow and ice on that, I think that would be a little bit of an issue. But with the 2-inch, it would probably it shouldn't be a problem. The only other thing is I see is, okay, all of a sudden somebody hears sirens and they're crossing the street, and I'm going to the center because this is a safe haven. Now, holy crap, now I got 6 trucks coming at me. So it might be a little bit of a confusing thing at first, but did I answer your question?
So with the roundabouts, if you go straight across those, if there's congestion and go right through the middle?
The way they looked at those pictures that Steve took, I think you could just maneuver basically right over them. Our speeds going through town, we try to keep our speeds down. When you're dealing with some of the county, some of the state guys, they tend to come through town a lot faster, and hopefully this would slow them down. Because we've all seen it, they're booking sometimes. But so our speed typically isn't over 30 miles an hour when we're, it shouldn't be, just for the safety of everybody. But it's just something to think about. I like the look. I really do. I think that center and all the color adds a lot. But as far as safety-wise, even and with the bump outs too, being able to see people when they're coming out in those crosswalks, especially if we're approaching with an emergency vehicle, it's not like they're just coming out from behind a car. And that's been an issue before too. But coming down that center is definitely where we want to be. So. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Any other questions from the audience? Yes.
Yeah, I'm Don Perrin. I have a business downtown on the corner by one of the roundabouts. My main concern there was parking. We'd lose it, especially in front of the drugstore. But I'm okay with the roundabouts. I think we can address parking issues by maybe the city buying some of these vacant buildings and tearing them down and putting parking lots there. Another issue I have is people drive through town really fast. And if something's going to slow them down, and I think a roundabout would, I think that's a real plus. Because I tried crossing to Ace today and step out in front of a semi that's coming down the highway. And then, I don't know, they might be going faster than the fire truck. Anyway, it makes people, and especially older people, to try to cross, they're going to be real hesitant, and people don't always stop like they're supposed to. And the third issue I have is part of this project is the water and sewer. And a few years ago, New Year's time, I had 12 inches of water in my basement, and because of an issue, and the insurance company from the city said it was an act of God. Well, if it happens again, it won't be an act of God if you guys don't do something about that. And then the insurance company either has to do something, we'll have to see an attorney. But anyway, I was fortunate to have coverage to cover part of it, but I was not able to build it back up to what it was before. So, and if you're going to delay your street project another 4 years, I was hoping to retire after this one was done. So now that's pushing it back another 4 years. I might be 80 by that time. Thank you. I really would like to see that you work with the MnDOT and work something out. And it seems like they've given you their final offer. So I'd like to see you work with them. Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience?
Name's Everett Ballard. I guess I would like some clarification on, I would think by now, the parking. I mean, parking was one of the big issues, loss of parking, and it's kind of getting swept under the rug with this whole project. We started out at 14, and all of a sudden it was down to 6. And if I heard correctly, now we're looking at up to 20 downtown parking spaces being eliminated, including 108.
Yes.
So 20 downtown parking spaces. I'm not sure on my figures, but that almost sounds like a third of what our downtown street parking would be. Would that be close, Brian?
I only know between the lights. I'm not sure what we actually have on 108s, but.
I mean, you've got businesses on right at that the Bell Bank, Pelican Drug intersection, State Farm. They rely on parking issues right on that street. I talked to the president of Bell Bank today, and he said they're not in favor of it in any shape or form. They lose 4 parking spaces, 2 on 108, 2 on 59. Just their business alone, a business which is investing hundreds of thousands of dollars right now in Pelican Rapids to be here. So I'm not sure if you guys seriously think that our downtown business district can withhold losing 20 more parking spaces than they already have. We're kind of turned into more of a seasonal town. You know, the businesses struggle here in the wintertime as it is. And to take another 20 spots away from down there, I don't think that's a good idea.
Thank you, Everett. But that was 20 overall, 6 downtown.
Correct.
No, that's 20 on 108
Yeah, but
and
59.
6 downtown.
It's 9 at the south roundabout, it's 6 or 7 downtown, and at the north roundabout it'd be 6, so a total of either 21 or 22. But the roundabout configuration is really where the intersection types, remove those regardless. Then there's different, whether we had left turns that affected how many would be gained or lost through the downtown. So I think as Tom mentioned, if they come in 4 years from now, do the roundabouts, those 9 and 6 at the roundabouts on 108 would be lost regardless with that same intersection improvement.
Commissioner Johnson?
I just, I know this is tough, but I believe you have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. You have the ability to have the other taxpayers in Minnesota and in the United States pay for about half of this project to upgrade antiquated infrastructure that is sorely needed. We don't use cast iron pipe anymore. That's what runs down these main streets. It's cast iron water pipe. It has a limited life. PVC pipe, which is I presume what would be put into place, has a 400-year lifespan. Cast iron is about at the end of its life. I just think that the opportunity here to save, I'm going to encourage you to act now. Kicking this can down the road, all that means is it's going to cost more down the future and certainly going to cost your taxpayers more in the future. Right now, you've got opportunity with the CARES, with the federal dollars coming in, the new federal infrastructure dollars that are going to be available. I think you can take advantage of those dollars, but those dollars 4 years from now may not even be here. It just perfectly lines up with the COVID response dollars that have been brought in with the federal government. So I just think it's an opportunity that's very difficult to turn down. So with that, I really appreciate all of your consideration, all of your travels to go look at things, to investigate, to do your work, and I encourage you to adopt this plan and move forward. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience? Before we move on. Anyone else in the audience? Last chance, anyone else in the audience? Seeing no one, back to the council.
I just wanted to mention something about the parking. I did kind of a survey of all the parking on Main Street. My criteria was 1/2 block or a little bit more from the center of downtown. And I came up with 114 spots. There were 44 on Main Street. The old liquor store parking lot was 20. And I had Middle Street west and east of 14. And then First Avenue, I had another 14 there. Now, some of those would be lost in the roundabouts, but then you've got parking behind Ace Hardware, which is another 26. You have, and that's all I included in that. I didn't include any of the parking from the VFW, the library, the senior center, or park behind the east side of the street there, which is another 20-some spots. So, and then there's kind of some private parking lots. And when I say private, I mean businesses that their employees park there, but they also have customers parking there. As an example, Jeff Morgan, I'll use yours.
It's a city lot.
Yeah, that's a city lot? Okay. Well, I could have included that, but there's another 7 spots there, I think, so. I mean, we do have more parking spots than I think has been really talked about, so. With that, I'll make a motion. Before I make the motion, I want to clarify something. When I came in here tonight, I was not going to go with option 5 because I didn't want to see a 6-inch raised thing down. 2-inch now, I don't know what to think about. But I would like to go into a partnership with MnDOT to get this project done. And I don't care whether it's option 1 or 5, but I would like to see this project go ahead. So that's my motion, I guess. That is my motion, that we partner with MnDOT to get this project approved.
I'll second that, and it would be 5 or 5. The 2 inch down the middle.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Did you get that, Daniel?
Yeah.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Discussion?
Well, I have spent more time on this than anything. I know a lot of people are unhappy. I see safety aspects, though. I see things slowing down. My thing is kids. You know, I watch them, and I watch them stand at the curb, and there's racism involved. People don't stop, and I see this as a plus. Those signs we put down on the crosswalk, so I see that plus. So, and we have to fix the lights.
Any more discussion?
Mayor, just to clarify, the motion includes option 5, the raised median.
Yeah.
His second,
his motion is,
Well, I'm kind of wishy-washy on that. But, yeah, okay, let's go with option 5. 'Cause that-
Any more discussion? Hearing none. Roll call vote, Daniel.
Strand.
Aye.
Ballard.
Nay.
Markgraf. Foster.
Aye.
Frazier.
Aye. Motion passes. So thank you all, one and all, for sticking with us through several months of discussion and meetings. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Just want to ask one question. How wide a load can come through Pelican now in this whole step?
Okay, moving on to item number 6. This time we're going to recess our city council meeting for item number 6, Project 89 assessment hearing. And during this public hearing, we cannot make any motions. We'll have to go back into the council meeting.
So you did not?
And we have Bob Freeman from Apex Engineering is going to address this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've got a presentation this evening that's going to be up on the screen there. I do have some hard copies with me this evening. Would anybody like a hard copy? Anybody else? Anybody else want a hard copy? Anybody else? No? Okay. Council?
Yeah, that's what I said.
Thank you.
Yeah.
John, you want one or not?
I need to get some.
Okay. I'm going to try to go through this fairly quickly. Don, if you could please help me out, that would be great as we go through this. Is it okay if I stand right here, everybody? Don, there? Okay. So we got 2 assessment hearings tonight. The first one is actually for a project that took place out on Trunk Highway 108 West. So when we did the plans and specifications, it was referred to the Colony Apartment Complex project. So again, it took place out on Trunk Highway 108 West. So the first agenda, some things that we're going to cover tonight, just simply the purpose of the hearing, a little bit on the project background, what the actual improvements were that were constructed, the final project costs, actual assessment methodology utilized, some cost sharing information, assessment rates and terms, and then at the end, if anybody has any questions, we'll go ahead and try to entertain those. Purpose of the hearing, present final project information. We did have a public hearing, I think it was back in 2018 if I recall, which was actually a hearing that was done before the project took place. We're here tonight to talk about final project information and costs, discuss the actual assessments, answer questions. If there are some corrections that need to be made to the assessments, we get a chance to take a look at those tonight. And then this is actually required by Minnesota Chapter 429 state statute. A little bit on the project background. What the project consisted of is we simply made some underground utility improvements, actually crossed underneath Trunk Highway 108 from the south side to the north side, and then extended down with the new street, which actually is called 6th Street Northwest. So the next slide actually has where the proposed improvements were. It's a little bit blurry. I'll try to explain. My light doesn't show up on the map there. So I'm going to go ahead and come up here if that's okay with everybody. So basically the city's utilities, mostly right over here. Before the project began, actually we're located over here on the south side of Trunk Highway 108. This is Trunk Highway 108 West. The city's utilities were over here on the south side. So what we did is we actually extended sewer and water, underneath Trunk Highway 108 to the north. There was actually some casing pipes that were required in order to do that. And then once we got to the north side of 108, we extended them west over toward the new 6th Street, actually meets Trunk Highway 108, and then we extended them north. So the utilities end right now where the new 6th Street Northwest ends. And then this grade here is actually a brand new street that went in. Includes bituminous pavement, curb and gutter, and actually a little bit of storm sewer way at the south end where it joins Trunk Highway 108 West. So that's basically what the improvements consisted of. Improvements constructed in a little bit more detail. So what we did is we extended 8-inch PVC water main. We installed new water services to abutting or nearby properties. We extended 10-inch PVC gravity sanitary sewer. We installed new sewer service laterals to abutting or nearby properties. And then again, we constructed a brand new street, curb and gutter, and a little bit of storm sewer on 6th Street Northwest, as I just described on the map. So final project costs. What I did here is the final project costs that we wound up with are broken down here by sanitary sewer, sewer services, water main, water services, storm sewer, curb and gutter, and street. So the final project costs came up to be about $754,000. I'm not going to go through each number in detail, but as you can see, there's a corresponding number for each one of the items I've got in the left-hand column there. So there's just a breakdown of what those actual costs were for each item. Assessment methodology. So I will say this, typically what happens within the city of Pelican Rapids, you have an assessment policy that says when you extend infrastructure to areas that currently do not have that infrastructure. So in this case, sewer, water, and a brand new street were installed to areas that did not have access to sewer before, do not have access to water, and there was no street there. Typically what happens is in those cases, 100% of the project costs are assessed to those properties that are deemed to benefit from that project. Because of the situation that the city had in this particular project, the city did get some grant dollars, some things like that. What the city decided to do is actually assess based on the city's policy for reconstruction. So the city's policy for reconstruction does not assess everything at 100%, but it basically assesses certain things at various percentages. And then on top of that, once we did that, the city received, because of the grant dollars the city received, we actually took the assessment rates and reduced them even further. So please realize this is a little bit of a unique situation. Again, the city actually backed off the assessments because of the funding, some of the funding and stuff that they received for these improvements. So moving on to the next slide, the assessment methodology for reconstruction. As you can see there, for sanitary sewer, assessable amount is 0, and the city pays for 100% of it. For sewer services, they are 100% assessable, with the city paying for 0%. The water main, the city pays for 100% of that as well. Water services, they're assessed at 100%. And then storm sewer and curb and gutter, for reconstruction, they're assessed at 20%, with the city paying the remaining 80%. And then for street costs, 40% of the street costs are typically assessed, with the city taking up the remaining 60%. So again, that's what the city's policy says for a reconstruction project. I think when we look at the additional information that I've got here, you'll see that the actual assessment rates were below what these percentages came out to be. So moving on to the next slide here, I got the actual cost sharing numbers. So for sanitary sewer, you can see the city paid 100% of that. Sewer services, they were assessed at 100%. Water services were assessed at 100%. Storm sewer, that was the assessment cost sharing came up to be only about $2,000. That was actually assessed for storm sewer, with the remaining $31,000 being city cost. Curb and gutter, about $1,600 was assessed. And then from the street, about $21,000 was assessed, with the city taking up the remaining about $150. So in the end, the total amount that was assessed was about $61,000. The city paid the remaining $693,000 and change. So the correlating percentages are about 8% of the overall project costs were actually assessed, and the city picked up the remaining 91 to 92%. So as you can see there again, only 8% of the overall project costs were assessed. So actual assessment rates once we got done. So what I did here is, again, I mentioned that we had a public hearing back in 2018. At that time, based on estimated project costs, I had presented some assessment rates. So what I've got here is, again, for those various items that I mentioned before on the far left-hand column, I have the actual assessment rates that were presented at the public hearing back in 2018. Next to that, I've got the final assessment rates, which are actually on the worksheets that were sent out for each property deemed to benefit from the project. And then the far right-hand column is the actual assessable units, or how we make the assessments on a per unit basis. So as you can see there, the sewer service. So in this project, there was what was considered to be a standard sewer service. So when we typically do a project, a lot of times the city's right-of-way is anywhere from 60 to 80 feet. Typically it's 60 or 66 feet wide. So a lot of times that sanitary sewer goes right down the middle of that right-of-way. And that service level typically extends out to the edge of the city's right-of-way. So you're talking about that 30 to 35-foot mark approximately. So we did have some of that in this case, where those service laterals were probably from that 30 to 40 feet in length. We had a couple properties actually where we extended service laterals a significant length in addition to what that typical 30 to 40 feet is. So we have a sewer service that was a standard length, again, that 30 to 40 feet. As you can see, the final assessment rate came in significantly lower than was presented back in 2018. For the sewer services that were the non-standard or longer length services, they actually came in a little bit higher than was presented back at the public hearing in 18. Water main was not assessed, so you picked up 100% of that. Water services for the standard length, they came in pretty close. Actually, for the final assessment rates, they're a little bit below what was presented back in 2018. For the water services, the non-standard length, or the longer ones, they came in significantly lower than was presented back in 2018. Storm sewer came in lower than was presented. Curb and gutter came in lower, and then the street came in significantly lower as well. Again, because of some of those grant dollars that the city received for this project, we were able to knock down some of those assessment rates. So overall, the rates came in very well, with the exception of the water service, the actual sewer service for non-standard. But overall, when you look at the assessment worksheets, I think every assessment worksheet that we had put together came in lower than we had put together for back in 2018. So again, project costs came in very, very good. Assessment deferral. So one more thing here that is a little bit unique to this project is, since we are extending these utilities out to an area that currently do not have utility service, a lot of these properties that are out here have a well right now that they're using. They have a septic system. So given the situation, what the city council decided to do was to defer the actual service laterals, just the water and sewer service laterals. So what they're going to do is they're going to defer them until the service lateral is connected to, the property is sold or ownership changes, or 7 years pass. So if any one of those things happen, then the assessments for these service laterals would kick in at that time for any given property. Assessment term. So the term is going to be a 15-year term, a 1.0% interest rate, which is very, very good. Typically, the assessment rates, interest rates are at least 2%. So a 15-year term at 1% is a very good interest rate, very good term. And again, once those deferrals kick in for the sewer and water service laterals, at that time, the 15-year payment term would kick in at an interest rate of 1%. I believe in the notice that we had sent out, it also clarifies that all interest is being forgiven until the actual assessments kick in. So let's say if you have a property where there's sewer and water services, 7 years pass, the assessments kick in at that time, all interest between now and that's 7 years down the road is going to be forgiven. So. How parcels are assessed. So basically a little bit of information on assessable footage. So what the city's assessment policy says, and again, on this project, outside of the service lateral, the only thing that was assessed was basically surface and stormwater improvements. So if you have an interior lot, so let's say if you're in the middle of the block, for surface and storm sewer improvements, the assessable footage would just simply be the width of that particular parcel or lot. So pretty straightforward. I think on the next slide here, I've got rectangular corner parcels. This gets into a little bit more detail. For surface, again, and storm sewer. So if you've got a corner parcel, you've got a street on each side, basically the assessable footage, and if improvements take place on both sides, the assessable footage would be the full width of the short side, plus 1/3 of the longer side of that particular parcel. The other thing that's in the city's assessment policy is in that long side, if the footage is over 150 feet, 100% of that footage over 150 feet shall be assessed in full. If it happens to be a square corner parcel, the street name and the parcel's address shall be considered a short side of the width. So I think I've got one more slide here, Don, that kind of shows an example of a corner parcel. So let's take a look at that one up on the top right-hand side. We've got a 75-foot short side. We've got a 150-foot long side. So for that parcel, if an improvement takes place on the street and the avenue, the total assessable footage would be the short side, 75 feet, plus 1/3 of the long side, which would be 50 feet. So, fairly straightforward. Questions or comments? Does anybody have any questions or comments?
Council, any questions?
Now, is there questions from the audience? Questions from the audience?
When do I ask about the,
You want to address them?
I just want to know when I ask about the value of my assessments. When does that come?
As far as specifically the value.
How much it is?
Everybody that's, should have gotten a notice in the mail for this hearing this evening, with that was the worksheet.
Right.
And on that worksheet was the actual assessment amount for each parcel that was sent a notice.
Yeah.
So
And I don't like it. That's why I'm here. That's what I'm saying.
Sure, sure.
When do I ask about that?
Yeah, you can, I mean, any comments, questions that you have, now is the time.
Okay. My name's Alan Martinson. I have property, I actually have a corner lot, and I have 2 lots there. The front lot, which is the corner lot, my assessments are $10,483. And the tax evaluation on that lot is $800. So I guess I don't really see how that would, I have the, right along the street there, yep, that one right there. I can't believe that that would increase my lot value by that much, having the water and sewer there. I didn't want it in the first place. I'll never separate those two. And as far as the back lot, my total assessments on that are $23,177. And I'm not hooked up to it at all. And be like the southwest corner of my shop there is where the sewer got put. And my water got put halfway down on the west side of my building. So if I ever am going to hook up to it, now I got to dig 2 trenches to hook those up. Yeah, I don't know. And even with that one, I can't see how it would increase my value $23,000. The total assessments were $60,000 on the project, if I'm correct. Mine being 33. And I talked to Mike Magnuson, who has other land. His is 22,000. So my math puts that at 55,000. The lot that's adjacent to mine to the east, so they only pay 5,000 for theirs. And maybe this is what the apartment got for their tax abatement. Maybe they don't pay anything. I don't know. If their assessments are nothing, but it doesn't seem fair to me that I have to pay over half of it. So, thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
My only comment would be, as far as Al's go, is Al's involved street, and the others did not.
That was the main difference, that is correct, yeah.
Could you repeat that? Al's properties are abutting the street, the new street that put in. The other 2 basically just got water and sewer assessments, where Al, because of the street, got water, sewer, and street. And when we were looking at these, again, you know, Bob did mention that we were trying to look at this from a standpoint of not going by the typical assessment methodology, because there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 properties that were involved in this. And so to just break it up by number of parcels divided into the number of, dollars for the project did not make sense. But however we looked at it, looking at it from the standpoint of area that was never serviced before, the assessments were just going to be astronomical. So we sat down and thought out too, just if you think about the projects that we've done in the past, and not so much the recent past, but the most, I think the one we were kind of focused on a little bit was the southwest new subdivision and southeast, the new southeast subdivision, which happened 2015, 2014, that was some years ago. Might have been longer than that, actually. And so we took a look at what those properties were assessed when that water, sewer, and street was put in. And granted, they didn't have any houses on them at the time either. That's usually how these places start out, as undeveloped lots. And so every one of those that had probably their valuations because of the size of the lots or property tax valuations or tax might have been, a few $100, similar to what Al's front is. And those parcels down there all had about $25,000 assessments to them. So when we were looking at this, trying to say, okay, well, that was 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago, whatever it was, that was put in, and their assessments were $25,000 for water, sewer, and street. Are we out of line with what we think would be reasonable in the case of Al's lots? And obviously, if you look at it from the standpoint of inflation over all them years, you wouldn't think it'd be out of line. $23,000 for water, sewer, and street. We understand that he doesn't have any need to hook up to the water and sewer, and that's where the deferments and all that stuff come in. So, we were, as we sat down and talked about it, we were concerned about the levels of what the assessments would be. That's why we went back and we looked at others. And then at the end of the day, too, just to make sure that if there was any dollars that were left over from that grant, instead of applying it towards the city's portion of the cost of this project, it was about, I think, $12,000 or $13,000 that we didn't have, that we had left over from that grant. We thought, and told Bob, I said, apply it towards the property assessment, just figure out what percentage of what the assessed amount was going to be, figure out the percentage of that for each one of them, and then take that same percentage to that 12,000 and apply them so that they would come down a little bit more. So if I'm just kind of reasoning out loud here without looking at the math, but if Al's two properties were 50% of the total assessment, then 50% of that additional dollars was thrown at his to buy it down. Does that sound logically right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we did everything we could to think about trying to keep these assessments as low as possible, especially in the case of Al's, because of the street effect of his. And at the end of the day, we thought, other than the council doing something different, the assessments all kind of fell in line with what water, sewer, streets went for the last time we had a project, and what the properties got assessed for water and sewer only compared to past projects. Nobody likes obviously paying assessments, but we couldn't think of any other way to do it where it would be any fairer than the way we did it. And I know it hurts no matter how you look at it, and that again is why there's a 15-year on this thing, deferred for up to 7 years, giving them time to either pay it down or pay it off or sell it or do whatever they want to do. And Magnuson was in the same boat. He was concerned about obviously one of his lots is undeveloped, wooded, and that has an 11,000 water and sewer assessment to it. And then his property with his house on it also is 11,000 something, a little over 11,000 for each one. And so, he has the same concern that he's got an undeveloped property that he's got $11,000 assessment on. But, in those cases where they're undeveloped, they don't want to sell them, or they don't plan on selling them. Someday they may sell all of it to somebody else, and having that access to water and sewer, I would think would make the lots more sellable if they decide to do that. And everybody knows, if you put in a septic in a well now, you're talking north of 20 grand per acre. So,
Alan, did you have anything to add to that?
So is the apartment building getting nothing of the assessments?
the apartment building did get assessed because that was part of the agreement with the apartment building to put the apartment in. They got the city, they wrote the grant and got the city to $766,000 to get the infrastructure out there. So part of the development agreement was the 766 grant, getting that in place, and then the other incentives to get the building to where they got the return on investment that they needed, which was reasonable based on our financial consultants' evaluation of it all. They basically also got some excess tip dollars, didn't have to pay an assessment on this infrastructure, and they also got, I think there was another $100,000 that was given to them from other economic development funds that we had to make the project a doable and a goalable project. Otherwise, we wouldn't have an apartment building, so now we're down a little bit. So yeah, that was part of the incentives to get the apartment building in.
Well, is Alan, your property, is that the 4 plots I see?
This one
No,
is
just the 2.
And this one
Yep.
is
North and south one, yep.
And what are you paying a year then when you're looking for?
For my taxes?
Yeah, for the notice dispatch.
I think it's right around $2,500 for the 2 lots.
That's what it is now, or that's what?
That's what it is now.
What would the assessment?
Well, I suppose if it's for 15 years at 30,000, that's another 2,000 a year.
For the 2 lots?
For the 2. But that's what I'm talking, is both lots also there too, is roughly 2,500, 2,600, somewhere in there.
I hear you, Alan. You think you're out in the country kind of, and then you're not.
Well, I was at one time.
Yeah, I was too.
Any other questions? Any other questions from the audience before we close the public hearing? Any other questions? Any other questions? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing and reconvene our city council meeting. Turn it back over to Bob.
So, what's gonna happen now is basically I do have a resolution adopting assessment. I believe that's in everybody's packet. So if you are comfortable this evening adopting the assessment rule as it's been presented, you have the ability to do that. If you do not feel comfortable doing that tonight, we can wait till the next council meeting. That would be an option, but I'm not saying it has to be done now, but I'm assuming we're gonna wanna get this assessment information to the county here in the near future, correct, Don?
Yes.
Yeah. So if you want to entertain a motion to adopt the assessment roll now, you can. If you want to wait till either after we get done with the second assessment presentation, because we had another assessment hearing this evening as well for facade 96 and 100, that's an option as well. And if you don't feel like comfortable passing either of them tonight, or only one of them tonight, you can do that as well. But you do have the resolution in your packet if you do wish to pass it this evening.
Council, what's your wishes?
I want everyone to be
Should we wait and think on this till after we hear the other? Okay. Before we go to the other one, let's go to item number 11, fire department personnel. I see Chief Steve is still with us. Probably still
Trevor, were you also interested in the public hearing to the schools?
Yeah. I'm here for that too, but if you want to go to that, if you have any questions on it, yep, that'd be great. Sat there too long. Yeah, I see him on there for fire department personnel. We did add a new member, voted on a couple months ago, Yancey Whitefall. He's has already started his firefighter 1 training as we speak. So with that, we would set at 23, still down 1. And we're always looking for new volunteers. So anybody out there willing and able, stop by City Hall and pick up an application and make sure you turn it back in. So any questions?
He's paid $11.47 an hour.
For firefighting hours.
What do we need, a motion to?
Yeah, motion.
Move to approve.
I'll second. Motion second. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, we'll recess the city council meeting and move into project number 90, assessment hearing. And again, there'll be no motions taken during this assessment hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got another handout for anybody who would like it for this particular project.
I had to.
What's that?
Can I get to?
Yeah.
Lesser is there.
Anybody else want one? Anybody else? Would you like? Anybody else in the crowd?
I'll take one.
Thanks. Brian?
This was from Broadway all the way around back of the school and then back up. So first, so a lot of it was county, but we had sewer. So I think I built 64 now.
All right, kind of replay here what we... Rudy? Sure. Kind of do a replay here of what we just got done doing, except for a different project. All right, assessment hearing for the CASA 96 and CASA 100 underground utility and stream improvement project here in the Pelican Rapids. Just want to touch on the agenda again. Purpose of the hearing, we'll go over that. Project background, improvements constructed, project costs, assessment methodologies, cost sharing information, assessment rates and terms, and questions. And if people don't mind, I think I'm going to try to go through this one a little bit quicker than the last one. So, purpose of the hearing, present final project information. We had a public hearing for this a couple of years ago before the construction started. Went through this similar format, presented some estimated project information and costs. We'll go ahead and present final information and costs. We'll actually discuss assessments, answer any questions, and if there's anybody who has a question on their assessment, we can take those questions and make any corrections if needed. And again, this is required by Chapter 429 state statute. So project background, make underground utility and surface improvements to CASA 96, CASA 100, a portion of First Street Southwest, and Great Northern Road. So I've actually got a project area map on the next slide here, so that basically shows where the project areas are. I'm going to go ahead and go up here to the map again if that's okay. CASA 96 includes West Mill, and then a portion of First Street Northwest. We actually lined the sanitary sewer underneath the Pelican River. A portion of First Street Southwest here was included in the project area, a little bit of Great Northern Road, And then CASA 100, which extends all the way around the Pelican Rapids High School, was included in the project area as well. So that schematic shows all the areas that were included in this particular project. Improvements constructed. Installed new PVC sanitary sewer mainline pipe, new precast concrete manholes, new PVC service laterals to the edge of the city or county right away. Again, we lined some existing sanitary sewer beneath the Pelican River using pier-in-place piping, so we did not have to excavate through the river. Installed new PVC water main, new gate valves, hydrants. Again, new service laterals to the edge of the city right away or county right away. And then installed new reinforced concrete pipe storm sewer, catch basins, and manholes. As far as surface improvements constructed, we installed new streets by removing the existing bituminous where it was currently or previously located. Completed subgrade correction. We installed a brand new bituminous surface where it was before. We replaced curb and gutter, sidewalk, and concrete driveway aprons. And then streets within the project area that had an aggregate surface prior to construction were reconstructed back to the same surface which was aggregate. So in a nutshell, that's what the surface improvements consisted of. Project cost sharing. So again, when we had that public hearing, we presented as-bid costs, and now we're presenting final costs. So as you can see, this project was a project that was co-funded by the Otter Tail County and the City of Pelican Rapids. So Otter Tail County, the as-bid cost share for Otter Tail County was about $1.8 million. The final project cost came in about $1.675. And when we got as-bid cost, the City of Pelican Rapids estimated share was about $1.2 million, and it came in just over $1 million. So this project did come in under budget, which is always good. Estimated project cost for the city share. So again, like I had in the last presentation, I kind of break things up into various construction items. Sanitary sewer, sewer services, water main, water services, storm sewer, street, curb and gutter. So I've got everything broken out there in the table. You can see it. Basically equals to that city share of just over $1 million. Assessment methodology. So this project consisted of a reconstruction project. The city has basically an assessment policy where it includes assessment methodologies for a project that entails installing new sewer, water, surface infrastructure to areas that are currently not served or were not served before the project. They also have a separate assessment methodology for reconstruction projects. So this project entailed reconstructing infrastructure that was previously there. So for sanitary sewer, replacing that, the city pays for 100% of those costs. Assessment percentage is 0. Sewer services, whether they're new or replacement, they're assessed at 100%. Water main replacement is assessed at 0%. Again, the city pays 100% of those costs. Water service laterals, whether they're new or replaced, they're assessed at 100%. And then storm sewer and curb and gutter, if it's replaced, it's assessed at 20%. The city pays 80% of those costs. Driveway aprons, whether they're new or replaced, they're assessed back to the benefiting property at 100%. Residential sidewalk replacement is 50% assessed. Non-residential sidewalk replacement is assessed at 100% for the benefiting properties. And then street replacement is assessed at 40%, and the city pays the remaining 60%. So the actual cost sharing when it came to the city share of the project, sanitary sewer, the city paid for the $274,000 that were allocated to the sanitary sewer replacement. Sewer services came in at about $86,000 or $87,000. Those were assessed at 100%. The replacement of the water main was completely paid for by the city at $380,000. The water services at $130,000 were assessed back to the properties. Storm sewer, as you can see, about $8,300 was assessed, with the remaining $33,000 being picked up by the city. Street, approximately $36,000 was assessed, with the remaining $53,000 being picked up by the city. And the curb and gutter, about $2,300 of that was assessed, with the remaining $93,000 or $9,500 being picked up by the city. One thing that I will say here is the city's portion was only about just over $1 million. The county paid for a significant, and I mean a significant portion of the project. They basically paid for all the surface improvements, within the CASA 100 and CASA 96 right of ways. So these assessment rates are going to be drastically reduced from what they would normally be on a normal street utility improvement project where everything takes place within city right of ways. So please keep that in mind. Moving on to the assessment rate. So like I presented in the last hearing, what I do is I have the various items that are assessed in the left-hand column. I have the public hearing rates, or rates that were presented back before the project took place. What the actual final assessment rates are, which were actually included on the worksheets that were recently sent out to the benefited properties. And then the assessable units way in the right-hand column. So as you can see there, sanitary sewer replacement, assessment rate is 0. For a 4-inch sewer service, the estimated amount was $2,900 to begin with. It came in at about $2,700. 6-inch sewer service, estimated amount was $4,800. It actually came in about $3,700. Water main replacement is not assessed. That's paid for by the city. A 1-inch water service, the estimated amount was $5,000 to begin with. It came in just over $4,000. A 2-inch water service with meter manhole. There were a couple of those on this project where there was a larger service installed and then there was a meter manhole that was installed with that service. Originally, it was estimated to cost about $12,000 for that. It came in about $10,600, $10,700. A 4-inch water service was originally estimated at $7,800. It actually came in at about $6,600. For a 6-inch water service, it was originally estimated at about that same price, $7,800. It actually came in about, again, $6,600 or $6,700. Storm sewer, originally estimated $3 per foot. It came in at about just under $2. For the street, it was originally estimated that that would be $12 per foot. $8.26 was the final amount, or final number of that. And then curb and gutter, originally estimated about $1 per foot, and it came in at about 73 cents. So, assessment terms. So the assessment terms for this project, the assessments have a 15-year term or payment period. And the interest rate on these is 2%. The reason it's 2% is the financing that the city received for their portion of the project was a low-interest loan from the PFA. That money is being borrowed at 1%. So typically what communities do is when they assess, they add a percentage. Some communities actually add up to 2%, whatever the interest rate that they're getting on their loan. So that's why this one here, the interest rate is 2% instead of 1%, which was presented in the last year. So how are assessments calculated? A lot of the worksheets you have, for the service laterals, they're on a per each. A lot of your surface improvements, they're by the foot. So how are they calculated? So here, if you've got a parcel that's in the interior of a block, typically the way your assessable footage is calculated is it's simply the width of your parcel. If you have an abnormally shaped parcel where maybe it's a pie shape or something like that, the actual assessable footage would be the average width. So pretty straightforward for that interior parcel. For a rectangular corner parcel, so we do have those situations where some of these parcels are actually on the corner. There's a street on 2 sides. So typically what happens there is if the improvement takes place on both sides of that corner parcel, the assessable footage would be 100% of the short side, which is considered to be the width, and 1/3 of the dimension of the longer of the 2 sides, which is considered to be the length. If the longer of those 2 sides is over 150 feet, 100% of the footage over 150 feet would be assessed in for. So if it's a square corner parcel, the street name on the parcel's address shall be considered as the width. And I've got a real straightforward example here, I think, on the next slide that we can take a look at. So here we've got some interior parcels that are shown. Again, you can see the width is just, or the accessible footage is just simply the width of that interior parcel. That one corner parcel that I got shown there. So in this example, if the improvements are done on both sides of that parcel, the total accessible footage would be the short side, which is 75 feet, plus 1/3 of the long side, which would be 50 feet. So I should mention in some cases, let's say if an improvement just got done on this slide on the street side, which is the short side, that parcel would only be assessed to the short side. If the improvement just gets done on the longer side of the parcel of a corner lot, the assessment would only include the 1/3 of that long side. So, any questions or comments on anything?
Questions from the council?
If not, is there a question from the audience?
When is this going to be payable? I mean, when does it start? Like in fiscal year 22,
So
3?
to answer your question, it'll go on the tax rolls, starting in 2022. And then I should mention this too, in the notice that everybody got, there are options for prepay. So if somebody wants to come in and pay the entire assessment off, they can do that. If you get 2 years down the road or 3 years down the road, if an entity or a business or a property owner wants to pay the assessment off 2 or 3 years down the road, they have the option to do that.
And then they take 2% off of that if you pay it up front.
If you pay up front, yeah, there actually is no interest, but that's something you can maybe discuss with the council if you want to.
Because when you own 2 blocks and then stuff on the other side, it gets to be a lot.
There were some very large parcels on this project, between the elevator, the school, there's some very large parcels.
It's a great project, though. It turned out very nice. Very nice. Much needed.
Any other questions?
Yeah, if there's just an error in mine personally, is this the time to bring it up, or should I just bring that up?
Absolutely. What's the error?
Well, I'm going to stand up here. So everything seemed pretty, I'm Jeff Morgan. Thank you. Have a business on Mill Street, and the hookup seems pretty straightforward, but the linear feet I'm being assessed on for the surface improvements, which isn't very much, is 31 feet, and my lot is 25 feet wide. So
which parcel number are you?
it'd be parcel number 7600099038.
We added 6 feet because it's you.
Well,
I feel your pain, Jeff.
So I've got the I've got the documentation from the county that shows it's 25 feet here on their property tax information, if you want that.
31 on our.
Yeah, that's wrong. Yeah.
Okay. Tell you what, let me look into that, obviously. Okay.
It might, yeah, I think the city lot comes right up to the side of my building, and so does it on the other side. The pool hall, actually, or whoever owns that building, it comes right to my building. My building's 24 feet wide, so
Yeah, let me
24 if you want. I don't know. Can I give this to somebody, or?
Yeah, I will take that. We'll obviously look into it again on our end.
Okay.
But yeah, if you want to give that to me, that'd be great.
And then, well, I guess I don't have another copy of it. Maybe I shouldn't.
Just go ahead, we'll look into it.
Okay.
We'll look into it.
I do have on a sticky note what you should tax me instead of $7,000. I came up with $37.50.
Okay.
No, it's. I mean, I don't know if you want that. That's just the math on this thing.
We'll look into it. We'll look into it.
It only saves me $60, but you know, so.
We will look into that, so.
Okay. Since I'm standing here, you know, one other thing I want to mention is because related to that project is, and I've talked to Don about this, and he did a good job of explaining it to me. If you go around town, I know some people had some concern about the sidewalks on Mill in particular, that they did them basically in 2 sections. So one starting at the edge of the building, and then there's another section going out to the road. And the way it was explained to me is there's a code that says it has to be almost no grade to it all, less than a 1 degree or 2, less than 2% for 6 or 8 feet or something like that. And so in front of my building, it's nice and flat, and then to get to the curb, there's what, about 4 feet remaining, and it's super steep right there. I mean, it's bad in a lot of places in front of the press and so on, but the worst place in town, and probably in any town that I've seen with a new sidewalk, is right in front of my building. And you know, it used to be relatively level because they did it differently. It probably wasn't to code. This is to code now. But
Back then it was probably fine, but there's a lot of new regulations that have come about in the last 5 years, let's say.
yep. And I can tell you one thing that helped cause this is they actually raised the sidewalk up a little bit in front of my office. So they created the problem actually when they put the sidewalk in by going a little higher and keeping it level, which caused even a bigger drop when they went down to the curb. So I've been here 21 years. I've had 3 people that I know of slip and fall around my building. One happened in the summer in the city parking lot, which I found out that the city has a special type of exemption when it comes to people slipping and falling. So that was my bill, even though it was in your parking lot. But that was not related to anything with the sidewalk. But so and that was a person was hurt badly there. Last winter, neither one required medical attention, but I had 2 people slip and fall on that sidewalk, on that slope. And both of them commented about it after they fell and had some bad wipeouts. So I don't know if there's anything that could be done. I think I'd talked to Don about it a little bit, and, you know, it kind of goes back to the code and so on. And if it could be, that surface could be roughed up or something there to, you know, make it so it's not quite so slippery, or if I can put a couple of us think of putting a couple of big planters out there with Christmas trees in them or something to keep people from walking there. Because I don't know if I'd invite you to go walk in front of my building. It's quite steep there. So
The challenge that we run into there is before we could go as far as the sidewalk, you know, anywhere from very flat, let's say 1%, down to sometimes there were 6, 7, 8%. Now, for whatever it's called a pedestrian access road per American Disabilities Act. So in this case, I think we made it 6 feet wide. That sidewalk can be no more than 2% cross slope. So a lot of times what contractors will do is they'll put them in at 1.5%, because if they get them more than 2%, they have to tear them out and redo them. So then all of a sudden you get a super flat grade on your pedestrian access road, and in order to make the curb meet the sidewalk, a lot of times we get a steeper boulevard is what it's called. The other thing is when you get that narrow, I think it's 9 feet there or something like that, it really makes that transition challenging when you have to meet vertical curb requirements per county state aid highway regulations. And then also a lot of those doors are fairly close, and there's varying elevations on the doors too. So we try to basically meet the sidewalk to the stoops on each door, so there's not a lift there, and meet the curb and gutter. So all of a sudden it becomes kind of a jigsaw puzzle as far as trying to make everything work. So we've had definitely some other concerns and complaints too, and on the same thing. I've contacted MnDOT, talked to them about it, and asked them, is there anything that we can be doing different in these situations? And the response that I get is it's a federal mandate. So
who should I submit the bill to when somebody slips and falls in front of my building this winter? What would you recommend? The city, the state, where should that go? Or am I just stuck with it again? Is that
something that I can't answer?
Yeah, you know, and like I said, the sidewalk was raised up immediately in front of my door, so that helped cause the problem. You know, it wasn't. It was much, not just level throughout, but the starting point. There still is. Yep. So it used to be maybe this much, and now it's, you know, so it's about 2 inches higher there, which would account for a lot of that. And I think the guy doing the construction explained to me that there's also some requirements about the slope going from one end of the street to the other, you know, the long way, that maybe had to come up because of that. I don't know, but I just know it's, you know, you got requirements and you got codes and all these things, but if you just go out there with common sense and stand there, you'd say this is not safe. I mean, you just look at it and go, this is bad. I don't know or care that much what the code says. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that it's dangerous. It really is. So I don't know if you guys want to discuss that more, if there's no discussion, whatever.
My only, when Jeff was talking to me about this, the only thing I didn't quite understand is why there was a need to raise the sidewalk up to reduce that space he was talking about. And the only thing that I can think of is if the 2024 project now goes forward and we're going to put a roundabout in that area, it may be an opportunity, depending on how they have to reshape all that stuff and how far they have to go, to think about lowering that dang sidewalk back down, because it's not only bad by Jeff, it's bad the whole way, further west, but also going towards 59 to the east. And so if there's some way that that sidewalk could be lowered back down again to where it was before, it would help reduce the steepness of that space anyway.
You're also limited too when you get into entering buildings as far as what kind of drop you have to the stoop of the building as well. We've run into that in other situations on MnDOT highway right away, where at that point then you either have to look at putting a ramp in with the landing, and then it gets more complicated, yeah. So there's a lot of things that come into play here as far as the ADA requirements and rules and regulations that have changed the way we do things, and we've had other concerns in other areas as well, such as even at the ped ramps at the intersections. A lot of times we like to put a lot of grade around that curb radius to make sure the water continues to flow. Well, there's requirements now where they can only be at a certain grade around those radiuses. So what happens is you get silt and sediment that when it comes flowing down the gutter, settles out at those places. You go through a freeze thaw and it forms ice. So now all of a sudden you have ice forming into ped ramps. We've had a lot of complaints about that as well. So those are just some examples of some of the challenges that we've run into. Like I said, I've expressed my concern to MnDOT on some of this stuff, and the answer that we get is it's a federal mandate.
And we have. Bob's ear, Brian's ear, the state, Tom Pace's ear about this. This can't happen in 2024, and if we can do something, anything to alleviate that much of a steep, that length over there in front of you, we should look at it.
And I think the 2024 project will have more room there to work with. Again, we had to put in, let's say, a 6-foot wide sidewalk, and we only had 3 feet to work with. You have a wider boulevard and curb or a sidewalk area to work with as far as the downtown and Trunk Highway 59. So I think you'll have an easier time meeting those thresholds.
Okay. Thank you. I know you got a lot of things to consider here, and it's just one thing, and I appreciate you listening.
I tripped going out of your office. You need to put a big warning on the door. You know where you're going out.
You tripped going out of my door.
And then you need to buy turkey bread for the rest of it till we get things figured out. That's the answer.
Why should he have to?
Well, for temporary measure, well, yeah, but it's gonna be icy now.
Okay,
Thanks.
thanks.
Thank you. Bob, Jeff presented that difference in his footage. How does that affect this project?
So what we'll do is we'll go back. I would recommend the city not adopt the assessment roll this evening. I will go back, verify that what he presented is correct, and then we'll make the adjustments, and then I'll come back and do assessment roll at the next meeting.
I had a question about that though, because if he loses 6 feet and it's city parking lot on the other side of him anyway, the city's gonna pick up that 6 feet. So do you have to recalculate?
No, I mean, if you're comfortable with tonight, what he's presented is correct. If you wanted to say, Bob, make the change, we're good with the 25 feet, that's gonna be city portion anyway.
Yeah.
That's perfectly fine with me.
Because I have a feeling the 25 feet is the correct number. But if you look into it, figure out and verify if it should be 25 feet, it's not like we're gonna put it on to any other property. It's gonna be city anyway, so we're done with it.
Any other comments from the audience? Any other comments before we close the assessment hearing? Any other comments? Hearing none, we'll close the assessment hearing and reconvene the city council meeting.
So again, the city council has the option tonight to pass the resolution adopting one or both of the assessment goals for the projects that were presented. If you do that, what we will do is we'll verify the assessment information, get that to the city. They will keep one copy, the other copy goes to the company. I believe both of those resolutions are in the council packet.
Yes. Council wishes?
Mayor, can I comment? The second resolution, 21 2021-06 regarding the project you just went over. Now, to me, it's just a matter of recalculating that property's footage and his assessment. And I don't know if the council needs to know that change to approve, or if they could make on this resolution, look into it, make the necessary change, since the rest is going to the city anyway, go ahead and approve the resolution 2021-26.
That's okay, Bob?
Yeah, if you're comfortable with that, I'll go back, verify, and we'll just make that change.
So in the resolution, nothing would change there,
Yeah,
anyway, except Jeff's assessment, and we'll send him a new one.
Do I hear a motion?
I'll move to adopt both these resolutions.
Okay, we have a motion to adopt resolution 2021-25 and 2021-26. For second? Motion second. Discussion? 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 Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Thank you. Moving on, item number 8 is Street Department Seal Coat Resolution 2021-24. Superintendent Brian Wilson.
Yes, this is just procedure plan on, in order to partner with the county on a seal coat project next year, which turns out to be about 126 blocks and are just over 8 lane miles. So we need to adopt the resolutions so that when they go out for bids, we can get the same cost they will get for our project.
Is there a second? Second. Motion second. Discussion. 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 Hearing none. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carried.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you. Item number 9 is park board update, and we have Kate Martinez with us here this evening. Kate?
All right. Hey, everybody. Good evening. Kate Martinez here for the park board. I had one quick pool item, if I could. We had some exciting news come in. The pool committee had applied for a grant through Ottertail Power Company Foundation, and it was for $40,000, and we were really hoping to get that because with our goal we've had set to raise $500,000 before the end of the year. That was set by our anonymous, not so anonymous donor out in Seattle to raise that $500,000. And so we did get the grant, and so that does set us at raising over $500,000 now for the pool committee. So all of that will be matched. So that's just really, we're just really excited about that. And I have pool committee members here. Park board. The park board has been really wanting to develop some type of green space in the northwest corner of town. We realize that does not have a public area, and the opportunity has presented itself where the Baptist Church has had some conversations with the park board because they are dissolving with the retirement of the pastor, and they would like to donate the land to the north of the church to the park board. It's right now a empty green space, and we would like to accept that donation, but we wanted to present that to you because with that, the church has asked that we cover the closing costs and survey. So let me just read it. Signed by the church. Final costs included city attorney to draft a quitclaim deed to be signed by the church board chairman, pay the recording fee, and pay for the survey.
You have a copy of that.
Yep. Yeah. Yep.
Let the council know that basically this legal description down on the bottom, I put together based on the parcel description that was there. And just to kind of give confirmation that my parcel description, legal description for that square would work, I sent it down to GIS, and they were gonna look and see if, based on the way I did it, if it would describe that square. If that's the case, we shouldn't need a survey, number one. And then as far as the quitclaim deed goes, I can attempt to do that too and just have it reviewed by the city attorney as opposed to the city attorney drafting one. So, but yeah, they want to donate the land. And then Kate, I think, we talked a little bit about initially, how would the land be used?
Yeah.
And what
Yeah.
do you see in the future?
Well, we talked about that as a park board last night, and we didn't come to any conclusion. We said first and foremost, there's a no trespassing sign on the property, so we'd like to remove that. Just seems kind of like a basic thing, but an important thing. And then as a park board, we said we would like to kind of table the conversation until we knew we had the property. But last night, also as a park board, we just talked about just the need for just green space in that area. There's at the school, I looked at one of the reports, and it was over 25% of our students live in that quadrant, and so sometimes just having the green space to just play would be a beautiful thing, not necessarily just developing it right away. And so that was just kind of the conversation that was had, and it was just kind of tabled till we knew what we had to work with.
Kate, what was the percentage?
25%, over 25%. Yeah, it was pretty high.
Would it be possible to relocate the playground equipment that was removed from whatever that park is down there?
There's two pieces that we could potentially put up there.
John, my question is, does anybody know for sure when the traffic state board is going to? Because I don't know, how quickly we can get the quitclaim deed put together for them to sign off on. They still have to be a board to do that, so.
Sure. Well, all I know is the pastor had his final Sunday, last Sunday, and that's when they voted for this to move forward. So I don't go to the church, I'm not sure.
We can go ahead and accept the donation. Do whatever paperwork we have to do. Motion?
I'll second.
Motion second, discussion? Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same, motion carried.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you. That was item number 10. Let's go down to item number 13, full bid discussion, design intent letter, which was in our packet. We have Scott from Design Intent.
Great. Thank you for having me, Mr. Mayor, City Council. Since the last time we've met, we had a bid opening. We sent the bids out, and we had 4 contractors bid for us. They bid the standard wage bid and also a prevailing wage bid. And I think you've got the letter in your packet. Hammers was low on both. $4,628,244. That was the low bid for standard wage. And if you went to prevailing wage, it boosted it up to $5,132,048 going to prevailing wage. And that would be required if you received either the grant that you're going for right now for the pool and or the state aid money that is in. Well, it's not state aid, but it's the bonding money from the legislature in May of next year. So I did contact, I talked with Don quite a bit, and the number is a little bit higher than we would have liked to have had it, but that's pretty typical on most projects lately. It seems like they're coming in pretty high. So I did contact Hammers. They are the low bidder, and I had asked them because when Don and I talked, we won't know whether or not we receive the grant money until January 15th or so. I think it was a $1.5 million grant that you guys are going for. Yeah, I can't remember the name of the grant, but it was some monies that the state had. So I asked Hammers, I said, are you guys willing to hold your bid? Can you hold your bid? And what we had done, or what they had done then, is that they had went out to all of their subcontractors, all of their suppliers, and asked them, hey, this is a possibility, will you hold your bid until the end of January 31st? Two-thirds of them said they would. There's a potential of 1/3 of the suppliers and subcontractors that are not able to hold their bids, and I can tell you what materials they are and stuff like that. So there is a potential increase if you're willing to write up a memorandum of understanding, or if you award the project to them with the condition that you would receive the grant, that sort of thing. So they know that there's a possibility that they still might not get the project if all the grant monies fall through. But there is a potential increase for the pool of $98,975 if you decide to wait until January 31st to let them know. So, for instance, rebar, that's going up in price, structural steel, the roof trusses, plywood and framing materials. The metal roofing was a big one, the siding, doors, aluminum entrances, the tile on the floor, acoustical ceiling panels, the toilet partitions, plumbing and HVAC, and then the water slide and the aquatic play packages are going up in price. Of all of those things that are going up in price, about 57% of it is coming from the metal roofing and siding and the plumbing and HVAC. All the rest of the items I told you are pretty minor, anywhere from $500 to $5,000, that sort of thing. And additionally, Hammer said that if you accept it that way, they're willing to offer a $40,000 savings from what they're charging if you will move the completion date, if you'll extend it to the end of September of next year, not because we had August 31st was the completion date, and then we had liquidated damages on top of that. They'd like it moved just till the end of September, so that's not too bad, but they would also like liquidated damages removed too. So that would be a cost savings too if you want to go that route. So they're willing to do all that to make this happen. And I did go through the bid with them, and I went through my drawings with them, and I wanted to make sure they were comfortable with their bid because they were $400,000 less than everybody else. The other three were all within $5,000 of each other on their standard bid. I thought that was pretty interesting. And they didn't miss anything. They just had a couple of good bids from some of the subcontractors, so it's all in there.
So the 98,000 that you estimate would be, it would go up by that much because of the hole.
It's a possible. It might not go. Yep, possible. Yep.
But we could take 40,000 off of that number.
That's my understanding, yes. So that's the 40,000. If you will extend, I think that has a lot to do with their overtime and stuff like that they have to pay their workers.
Because when you're paying prevailing wage, you got to pay overtime at a different rate. If they work their guys 10 hours a day to get the project done by August, they got to pay 2 hours overtime, not 8 hours. If they can extend the project out, or if we extend it out, and now they can keep their guys working just 8-hour days, they avoid the overtime. Or can avoid it.
Yeah, Associated Pools, they come from Bismarck, and usually their guys come and they want to work 12, 13, 14 hours a day because they're away from home, so they want to get in, get done, and get out. At standard wage, that's not a big deal, but at prevailing wage, they're required to start paying, I think, overtime after 45 hours, so then it boosts it up, basically.
So removing the liquidated damages would not be a big item last time.
It wouldn't be a big item, period, because obviously we've experienced that.
But I mean, we have to open the pool in November.
No, you won't. No, you won't. So it's a 1.89% increase is what the potential increase would be, holding it till January 31st, which isn't that bad, really.
So basically, a low bid plus engineering plus contingencies, because that 5.7, the 5.1 was the low bid, but then when you add engineering and contingencies on that, we get the 5.706 is the real number. But 250 or 260,000 of that is contingency. May need it, may not need it.
Yep.
So if we look at the potential of, increase of 98, but you can knock 40 off of that, and we can do whatever during this project to keep that contingency from being spent, at 260, we might end up below 5.706. We might end up above it too.
Yeah.
But at least we control to some extent, the contingency. Some stuff is unknown, unseen, and it comes up. But some stuff through change orders, through things that come up that we can make decisions on, and might be able to save a little bit there. The bottom line is, council doesn't have to reject.
No.
You don't have to reject bids tonight.
No.
You can wait, then
We have
and put together an MOU.
Yeah, we have a 30-day period that we can accept, reject, or come to an understanding with Hammers, so.
But that 30 days, what's the end?
It would be December 11th, because we open bids on November 12th.
Okay, so we would have to put together an MOU, and maybe we'd probably have to have it approved by council, so we'd have to have a special council meeting, because our next council meeting is the 14th of December.
Yeah.
So we have to get the MOU done, call it a special council meeting with 3-day notice, bring that to council, and then act on that. Or the other option is to reject the bid. If you reject the bids, then we're gonna have to rebid this thing. And when we would rebid it would probably be after we know whether we get both.
Yeah, and there might, you never know, there could be a special session too, so you might not know in May, it might go into June or July before the state.
Right, so the bottom line is we reject it, we rebid it, we'd use the pool again this summer, and then have to do another bid opening next year, and I think we're all pretty confident. From what you were saying, what Scott was telling me was some of the numbers, we got really good numbers based on what he was thinking we were gonna give him at, so this is a good bid, higher than what we wanted it to be, but if we wait a year with inflation and everything else, I don't know if it'll be lower.
It would be more cost effective to write up an MOU and wait till January 15th or 18th or whenever you find out about the grant and go at that point if you want to make it a go. If we wait till next fall to rebid it, it's going to be more than a 1.89% increase in cost. It just, certainly there's chances it could go down in price, but I highly doubt that.
And you'll still be able to reject, even with the MOU that you guys act on, December 11th or whatever it is. You guys will still be able to reject the bid at the last meeting in January.
Yeah.
Because all we're doing is we're extending to find out if we're going to get that $1.5 million targeted community capital project grant.
Yep. Yeah.
And Hammers is aware of all this.
Yep, Hammers, I made them totally aware with it. We've talked to everybody there. We've all been huddled together trying to figure this out, and they are absolutely understanding, and all the subs are. So they contacted all their low subs and all their second low subs just in case the low sub wouldn't hold their price and the second low sub would. They would then go with the second low sub to mitigate the rise in cost. The roofing, unfortunately, that's going to be one of the largest increases, and the second low sub from Herzog's was $25,000 higher. So I'm assuming Herzog's is still going to be the low sub even after it's done.
There was another thing that you talked to Herzog's about, and in the email to me was some potential areas where we could cut some costs off. Obviously, one of them was the solar panels. It was one area that we could cut some stuff off. But obviously, what I mentioned to you was the solar panels was an added cost, but that also had a very short payback. So to take them off didn't make sense to me. But one of the other things that was quite spendy on his bid was the trusses.
Oh, the trellis, the wood trellis system. Yep.
Yeah. So
yep.
there is some. You had.
I think it's Yeah, actually.
It made sense to think about, and not changing the overall amenities and the pool and all that stuff. It was more like the trellises that we could do some other day or whatever. Something like that that could help offset that $98,000 or $58,000 net increase if that's what happens.
Yeah, the trellis, I'm sorry, Don.
That's okay. Personally, in my opinion, I don't see a downside to holding on, get an MOU in place, wait till after we get notice on the $1.5 million grant. Not the bonding money, that's a whole other thing that we'll talk about, but that targeted grant, wait till we get that, and then decide to award the project. Because all the MOU is doing is giving us till the end of January to reject.
Yeah, it's just giving you, extending your time.
Yeah.
Yep.
I
Yep.
don't see a downside to doing it.
Yeah, the trellis was $51,000 to put that on. That's a wood trellis system.
Technically, we could say no to the trellis system. There's 51. We're getting 40 back from him. There's 91. So it might, depending on your estimate, it might be higher
Yeah.
than 90. But
And the 98,000, they're pretty confident that it wouldn't be more than 100,000, and that's at the worst case scenario. There's, some of these items, maybe the doors come in at the same price, the tile comes in at the same price. So that's their maximum amount they think it'll go up within, by January 31st. That's what their estimate is.
So we can
Yeah.
offset that.
Yep. So,
Before we take any action, there's a few members of the pool committee here this evening. Would you be willing to comment on what you've heard? You don't have to, just giving the opportunity.
I didn't know we'd have this opportunity, sorry.
I think the fact that they raised the other 500,000 and got that full match, there's 1.5 million right there. And we hope to continue to do fundraising. I believe it's.
Yeah, we're definitely not done. We're excited about this project. Yeah.
So we've got $1.5 million in donated funds. That doesn't even count the city's 1.2 that we committed. I mean, this project is a full project. It's so close.
it's really close.
And to not get them to hold their bids and do an MOU and take the chance that next fall we rebid this thing at $6.7 million, this makes it more unreachable. So I don't see a downside in doing it. What do we need to do?
What would your motion read?
I think the motion would just be to get the MOU, have Scott work up the MOU, or me and Scott work up the MOU with Emerson agreeable to call a special meeting of the council prior to the December 14th meeting, or the December 11th.
December 11th, yep.
Make a motion to do both of those things.
Motion second. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Thank you. Let's go down to item number 14, pool grant application and resolution of support 2021-1. That was in the packet. Don, were you going to speak to this, or?
Yeah, just a second. So, Amy King and Kate Martinez and I have been working on this targeted community capital project grant that Representative Rasmussen came and said this would be such a great fit for Pelican. And looking at the grant application, I think it is, but boy, it's the typical grant application the state throws out there. What makes this more difficult too is you can't call, they put the RFP out there, and you cannot call and ask a question. And believe me, there's tons of questions. All you can do is email the person that's in charge of the grant application, email them, and they will post on the Dean's website all the questions and the answers to all the questions. The problem is, you send them questions, And when they post them on the website and answer your questions is who knows when. Amy and I posted questions early on, and it took, I sent an email to her saying, when are you going to answer these questions? So we had a couple questions that we posted on there last week, on, I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday. And they came back and said, oh, because of the holiday, we'll put answers up to them, and our answers up on Monday or Tuesday. As of 3:30 today, they still weren't there. They have answered 99 questions, but I'm sure there's another 99. So it just is, it's frustrating, and I mentioned this to Representative Rasmussen too, that they have this process in place. We got a short timeline to file an application for a grant, and we can't even get the questions answered. So it's been a frustrating process. Plus the stuff they're looking for, so where do they come up with this stuff? Anyway, the grant must be submitted by Monday, December 6th, this coming Monday. But our goal is to have it up and uploaded by the end of day Friday the 3rd. And the reason for that is if we have any hiccups and we miss that Monday deadline, it's emailed. It's what it is, it's uploaded. If you miss that deadline, you have no chance of putting an application in. They anticipate they'll notify the applicants of their award by January 21st. You know, so we talked about in the MOU, or the last meeting in January, that the council would basically have to award this. Well, I think that's the 25th. So we would know, hopefully, I mean, they say anticipated notification of the 21st of January. So it better be right around the 21st of January, or we'll be calling them because we have to know by the 25th, okay? And then they say the anticipated contract date when everything would be signed and it would be a go would be about February 15th. So it would be, and it really doesn't, once we get the grant, that doesn't really matter when they get all the signatures on the contract between Deed and the city, because they're really not going to be doing any work in the middle of February anyway, you know, if we continue to go forward with it.
They will order all the materials though. As soon as they get the contract signed, they'll start ordering everything for the project.
Right,
So
and
it'll
we'll
lock
know
in
that
the
we're going to get
prices.
the grant, it's
Yep.
just a matter of all the paperwork being signed by
Right.
Deed and the city. And then once that contract's in place, we have 4 years from the date of the award that they tell us. We have 4 years to encumber that fund. So we really, if we get this grant, we've got 4 years to spend it, which is great. So one of the things that was in your packets was a resolution. And basically what we need tonight is for the council to approve submitting the grant, and then this letter of this resolution approving it. And what the resolution basically, other than you know, I did this resolution, I was trying to use some of the language, you know, reflecting, obviously I tell them how much what the estimated cost of the project is, you know, $5.706 million. Also, a little bit of our census information in here so they get an idea of the diversity in our community or whatever. But the main thing that I want to point out is the now therefore paragraph. The city of Pelican Rapids supports the grant request of $1.5 million for the upgraded swimming pool. But more importantly, the next part of it, if awarded the grant request, the city of Pelican Rapids will provide up to $2.753377. And the reason I came up with that, or how I came up with that number, was basically we have $1.5 million from a donor and donation. We've got $1.5 million from the grant. That's $3 million. Our project today is basically 2.5 million more to get to that 5.7. So that's how I came up with that number. And I say we'll provide up to this amount. because it's still really important that we get donations and we do fundraising, because the more we can get this number down that the city is committing to, in a sense, up to, the more we get that number down, excuse me, the more tax capacity, tax abatement bonding capacity the city will have to work with after this project is going. Because remember, we had all this discussion before, and Tammy Allendale talked about our financial consultant, how we're putting all of our eggs in one basket. And we were tapping out our tax abatement number, and we were using, at that point, when she gave us that information, she gave us a number that was based on the city bonding for 3.2 million, I believe. Well, in this scenario, the city won't bond for 3.2 million. We'll bond for 2.7. So it gives us a little bit of cushion. The other thing about passing this resolution, all it does is for the application purpose, it shows D that the city is supporting the project and we will do up to this amount. It's not committing us to doing the project. All it's doing is it's helping us get the grant. If we get the grant and something else happens, whether it's all of a sudden we find out later on that the bids are going to be way higher, whatever the case may be, there's still an out. This is just to get us awarded the grant. We don't have to accept the grant once it's awarded to us. You follow? But the one thing you know is the city potentially would be 2.75 million as opposed to 3.2, or as opposed to the 1.2 the city's already committed to it. So it is the city committing more to it if we have to go that route. The other part of this is, this gets us this grant. We've still got the state bonding bill and the 1.5 we're asking for there. And it gets a little bit, we'll see how all this kind of stuff moves around a little bit, but we know that we would get awarded this by the end of January. We would have to go ahead and, the way I'm thinking now, we'd have to go ahead and award this to get this thing moving under the 5.7 million plus another 100,000 or whatever, to get this pool going. And that will be before we know about the 1.5 we're asking the bonding committee for at the state level. So how does that come into play? Well, again, how much of this do we actually incur prior to knowing in May whether we get any bonding money or not? We may have a little bit of stuff that happens in the spring or whatever. We may incur some cost. And if we get the 1.5 million, great. It helps us buy down this number. There might be some of those expenses that we've incurred that won't be eligible for the bonding 1.5, but it will be eligible for the 1.5 under this grant. So what I'm saying is, if the bonding committee says, okay, we'll give you 1.5, there's a portion of that stuff that may not be eligible for the 1.5. But it will definitely buy down the 2.7 that we're saying we'll pay up to. So passing this resolution just gets us the application in, complete, and hopefully gives us 1.5 from the targeted grant. Any questions?
If we were awarded this, how does the state legislature look at this?
We don't know that. I mentioned that to Kate today because one of the things that they could very well ask us at the bonding bill when we go and we testify for that 1.5, they could say, have you got any other money from D? Or any other money from the state? And we would have to tell them, yeah, we got 1.5 from the targeted grant. But then I believe we would have to justify why the state should give us more money through the bonding bill. And I think partly the argument could be, it's your prevailing wage requirement that got us in this pickle. They don't have to listen to it. And they might decide, we're not going to give you 1.5, maybe we're going to give you $1 million or whatever. So it could have an effect on it, it may not. I know that for this grant, they asked, have you got any other money from any other state agency for this project? And we could honestly answer no, because we don't know what the bonding bill is proposed for. So best case scenario, We get this money, we get bonding money, and the city really only has to pay 1.5 or 1.2 million. We only have to bond for that much. Worst case scenario is we get no money from the bonding bill, and we have to come up, instead of 1.2, we have to come up with 2.75 to do the project. And we can, our tax abatement capacity can handle 2.75. Remember, it could handle 3.2, but it kept us tapped out. So,
Council? I was looking at this earlier, and I'm not good at English, but halfway down that bigger paragraph, Pelican Rapids agrees to accept the grant award and may enter into an agreement. Is that right?
yes.
Does that sound?
Yeah. I purposely did it that way too, because if the state, they're going to send us an agreement that we have to enter into. We could decide not to enter into that agreement once we get it. That's why I put it that way. They may read it as, okay, you may or you may not, or they may see it as you're saying, yeah, we're willing to. I had a reason for wording it that way instead of shall. Shall seems more committal. The other thing too I'll mention is, and one of the questions I wanted to get an answer on was, I asked them, the 1.5 million targeted grant, is that a pay-as-you-go grant, or is it a reimbursement grant? And that's important because when you think about PFA and we do our bonding for PFA, as we get bills, invoices, we turn around and we send them to PFA. We don't have the money. We just get the bills, we send it to PFA, then PFA sends us the money. And at the end of the day, they end up, calculating how much we use and we do payments on it, debt service payments. But some grants, you have to pay for it up front, then send them invoices and proof that you paid it, and then they reimburse you. I don't want that kind of grant, because the 2.5, if we can do it and then just send them invoices, we only have to bond for, 2.7, up to 2.7. That's all we would have to bond for. But if they come back and tell me, no, you have to have the money and pay for it up front, then we're going to have to bond for their 1.5 on top of our 2.7. So that might be another reason why we don't enter into it, but we'll have to see what they come back with that answer. It's really sad that the state puts small communities in that position to where they have to borrow the money that the state's going to give them, because when we borrow it, that's what we have to, that's our debt service. And that's weighed against our bonding capacity. So it's not fair to do it that way. So I'm hoping they come back and say it's a pay-as-you-go. So we get invoices, we send them to them, they send us the money to pay it. Otherwise, it's going to make this a little bit more difficult.
When will you know that for sure?
When she answers my question, hopefully. And really, to be honest with you, Brent, if they don't answer the question by the end of the week, we still have to get this thing in. It still comes down to whether we sign off on the agreement or not. And I'll talk, and Tammy's waiting for that answer too, Tammy Anka, that she knows how she needs to structure our debt service and our bonding and everything, or how we might be able to do this, knowing that the state's going to reimburse us for money.
What would the council like to do?
I recommend you pass the resolution.
I'll move adoption of resolution 2021-23.
Is there a second?
Council.
Motion second, discussion.
Thank you. I was just going to add, when the bonding committee was here, they're aware of this grant. It's the first year this grant is moving forward. And so the chair of the bonding committee pulled me aside and said that we should apply for this grant because we do fit all the criteria. And so he also is writing a letter of support for Pelican Rapids to get this. So that's pretty huge. That's really exciting. We just found that out today. And also, I think it would just look bad if we didn't go with his recommendation to apply. So I just wanted to add that too, how we learned that. Thanks.
Kate, don't sit down.
Oh, okay.
Any more discussion? If not, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Item number 15 is pool minutes. They were included in our packet. Being we got the pool committee here. Any questions for the pool committee? Hearing none. Okay, thank you.
Great, thanks so much.
Item number 12 is bridge funding discussion, liquor store, $250,000.
Yes.
Don.
As you recall, when we had the special council meeting, we were talking about budget and stuff. One of the things that I had mentioned was, we shared and talked a little bit about the liquor store savings account. And you're all aware that I did put, with the full bonding funding request, we also put the bridge, when the dam goes out, that bridge to go across there on that bonding bill. And so our share in that is going to be $250,000. And so, because the city's match is that amount, I would recommend and ask the council to commit $250,000 of the liquor store fund to be set aside to pay for the match when that bridge goes in and the dam goes out. And that way we can have them, I think we'll be able to have it done right away. Because it looks like, with the winter where we're at and with the kind of, some of the design stuff, and we're waiting to try and figure out with dam safety, we were going to be able to use some of the money that or DNR, if they were going to be able to use some of the money to put the abutments in. That delayed things on this. So in reality, it looks like the dam won't come out this winter, it'll come out next winter, which kind of lines everything up, because we'll know for sure if we're getting the money for the bridge from the state, and I think we have a great shot at it, knock on wood, but then that means we get the state money, we have this 250 sitting there. As soon as that dam's pulled out, and part of the project design and everything else, Houston will be able to design and get that bridge in here as soon as the bridge comes, as soon as the dam comes out. We did find out that Lassard's grant that the DNR is using, they said that they will pay for the design of the abutments for the bridge, because they're looking at that as a structural support for the bank, for the project there. So that was great news, because that's going to save us quite a bit of money on the bridge and the installation of the bridge. And so, just to make matters simpler, I don't know if we'll need this whole 250 or the state whole 250,000 for the bridge because of Lassard's determination, but that's what we have to go with to write the grant or to get the bonding bill. So we might have some of this left over that we can get back to the liquor store savings or the city.
Council?
Did you just say that they're not planning on doing the dam this winter?
Not this winter, because, correct, they have to wait until next year because they don't have, to get the bids and everything and get them out there and get good bids and everything they have. And the design's not done, obviously the council hasn't seen any designs yet. So now that we know that we found, because we were checking with Lassard's money people about designing the abutments in, and the DNR dam safety guys, and we needed to know what they would do so Houston can start working on that part of the design. Otherwise, they would have to go back and redesign. So that delayed it. So they thought, to get bids right, get everything structured right, we'll go ahead and get everything done and get ready for pulling it out next winter, which actually is better for us.
I move to approve Don's recommendation.
You got that, Daniel?
Yep. So excited you did.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. Discussion?
Well, I think of the senior citizens building and things like that. I mean, so I mean.
Discussion?
So if the dam isn't going to be taken out till next year, should we fill it back up again, or what should we?
Good question.
Fill what up?
The river.
You can ask that question.
Yeah.
But I think the answer to that question is going to be probably let it be because it gives that vegetation more time to establish.
You want to ask him, Don?
I can ask him, but I'm pretty sure that's what they'll say. And I'll find out, because maybe they might start taking stuff off this year. I'll get more of a timeline from them as they, because I know they're working on design now. Houston just said it didn't look like they were going to be able to do it from it.
Well, it's possible to still work on the upstream projects.
Good.
I mean, they said they would remove the dam and stuff like that.
I'll
There's a
find
lot
out.
of upstream projects.
Yeah. We'll have
Rock
it.
dredging and
You're right.
rock placement for rock rapids.
So there's other things, we'll have that conversation.
Okay. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Item number 16, Planning Commission updates. There's minutes in your packet, and there's also a resolution that was put on your desk this evening that was passed by the Planning Commission and meets our approval. Resolution PC 2021-01 to rezone. Ballard, do you want to speak to this?
Sure. This resolution has to do with the project that we annexed, talked about annexing for the county garage, that we annexed, and then per code, anything that is annexed into the city is annexed in as agriculture. And we are recommending to rezone that industrial, since it's a continuation of the industrial park.
So it was a resolution that was put before you tonight with their recommendation.
I think it's important we don't have to call you a sheep there, so. I move we approve that resolution.
Is there a second? Motion second, discussion? Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same, motion carried. Item number 17, last meeting in December. Danielle, were you going to speak to that?
Sure. So in the past, I think as long as I've been here, council has decided not to have a second meeting in December. If we did have one, I think it would be the 28th of December. I'm on vacation, so I don't care what you guys do, but I would recommend, I don't see anything coming up. We're having our public hearing for truth and taxation at the 14th meeting. So I would recommend not having.
I move to stay with our tradition.
So I'll second.
Motion second, discussion?
The department heads have to get their bills in the beginning of the month.
I would do what we've done in the past, if it's okay with council, where I email you the bill list. I'll probably do that around the 22nd. Oh no, I'm looking at November now. I'll still probably do it around the 20th of December and email it to you, asking if you have any questions on it, and then we'll do a formal. That way we can pay those bills before the end of the year. If you have any questions, of course, I'll pull those ones, but then that way we can get our bills paid for the year. And we'll do the formal approval at the next meeting.
Keep in mind too, I think the 11th, is it a Saturday? 11th of December?
Yeah.
So we have to have that prior meeting, a special meeting is gonna have to be prior to the 11th on a Saturday, so probably like the 9th, the Thursday. So keep that in mind, because we'll have to post that on by that Monday or the prior week if we decide to do it the first Tuesday.
Well, you will technically have two meetings.
You will technically have two meetings.
One meeting or special.
Yeah, one special meeting that would just be that, unless you guys want to approve bills at that time.
Okay, Don, you officially got me off track here. Did we vote on this or not?
No.
Still in discussion. Still in discussion.
Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Item number 18, library pay request number 2 of $142,488, and there was paperwork on that within our council packet. Danielle, did you want to speak to this?
I sure can. This is the bill. They're still, they're asking for $142,488 now. It has been, library board has looked over it and approved it. The architect has signed off on it, and so we still owe them the $23,000, but it's work they did, so.
I make a motion to pay that pay request for the library rep.
I'll second that.
Motion second, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Let's go to item number 22, while Danielle has the floor. Pheasants Forever raffle.
Yeah, this was just dropped off right after we sent the packet out. But Pheasants Forever would like to have a raffle at the VFW on February 5th.
Thing that comes around every year.
Yeah, and we, yeah.
I make a motion to approve the Pheasants Forever raffle request.
Second. Motion in 3 seconds. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Item number 19, administrator report. Don.
Yep, since the last meeting, spent time setting up for this, and prepping for this council meeting. There's a lot of things to get together this time. Attended a conference call with Houston Engineering, the DNR regarding the dam project. Prep for and held a Zoom meeting with the mayor, Councilman Foster, People Service, and the MPC regarding the chlorides that the state is pushing. Chloride limits. Just a little more work to do on that. I did submit a request for waiver on it for them based on our conversation with the MPCA, and so we'll find out that it's a waiver eligibility and variance request forms. So I had a conference call after our phone call. I had another call with the MPCA, one of their individuals, and a couple of them actually, and got that form all figured out and then submitted the stuff. So it takes, I believe, they got the form, so as fast as the EPA and the MPCA is, it could take over a year before we find out if we get away. But in the meantime, I got other stuff I got to do by February. So I attended the pool bid opening. I prepped for and attended the council meeting on December 12th. Attended a safety meeting. We had to reschedule it because we didn't have enough showing up to have a safety meeting. So we rescheduled that. I held a conference call. I always said that. I worked on a warranty, getting a warranty deed in the city recorded. And it's the property that the city, and it involves a dam project, but it was the property that the city was conveyed back in the 1960s. The Wicks owned the post office building, and they had given quitclaim deed to the city, the property north of the post office, and it's pretty much where the parking lot ends. So it's about 10 feet north of the post office. It's now the city property given to the city. But in the 60s, it never got recorded. And so with the dam project developing and some trees that need to be, really bad looking evergreen trees that need to be taken out, instead of having, because it wasn't recorded, technically it's still the Rich property, and to get a hold of them and get approval to, access and construction easements and all that stuff. we just got the document after I worked with Greg Larson on it for a while. Finally got it recorded, and so the Wicks property is no longer owned by the individuals, it's in a trust. They still are recording it as the city being the owner, so that should have happened or will soon to happen. I went to the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities Conference in Wilmer, and on the way back from there, I drove through Glenwood and then Starbucks. I wanted to see how that Starbucks Complete Street project turned out, and it really looks nice, to be honest with you, with the bump outs and the sidewalks and everything there, so it was a good project in Starbucks. I met with Representative Rasmussen and Mayor Frazier to talk about this targeted community capital grant. And then I'm working with Amy King, like I said, and King Martinez to get this thing completed by Friday. And then I did have a conference call with Tammy Amdahl to get more clarification on the city's financial state regarding the pool. And what she clarified was that the 3% bonding limit that I brought up before doesn't apply to tax abatement bonds. It only applies to a general obligation bond. So the 3% isn't an issue when it comes to the pool. The tax abatement capacity is tied to the city's net tax capacity, or $200,000, whichever one is higher. Well, in our case, it happens to be the $200,000. So if you remember when we were looking at, again, I'll just quickly reference the $3.2 million tax abatement that Tammy gave us numbers on. That showed that we would have a 130,000 net tax abatement on that bond. Well, actually, we're looking at now, instead of 3.2, we're looking at 2.7, 2.75, 2.8. So that number will actually come down, which is good too. So I do still plan on having a conversation with her as soon as I find out the answer to my question indeed. And then last night I attended the planning commission meeting.
Any questions for Don? No, thank you. Don, one question. The post office, is that going into a trust?
Yeah, it was placed in the trust.
The whole property?
Years after.
It's still owned by Wicks at this time?
It's owned by the Wicks Trust.
Okay, I see they're doing
post office building.
Yes.
Oh, everything.
Yeah, they've been leasing from the post office has been leasing from them for many years.
I see they're doing remodeling inside the post office.
I suppose the post office has the authority to do that.
Did we approve the 2022 budget, or is that at the end of next year? It was approved.
We've approved it, and we'll do the final, we'll approve the final budget at the next one. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Don. Item number 20, mayor's report. A few things I've done in the past 3 weeks, exactly. Conducted an interview on November 10th with Green Corps regarding an impact statement of support for local food and local places here in Pelican Rapids. Attended the pool bid opening on November 12th here at City Hall, and the flooring reduction plan meeting at City Hall on November 15th with Councilman Foster, Administrator Sullivan, People Service personnel, and Minnesota Pollution Control Agency personnel who joined us by Microsoft. Attended local foods, local places Zoom meeting on November 17th. I met at Muddy Moose with retired Minnesota Supreme Court Justice Alan Page and Arlene Tornwolf of the Federal Reserve Bank of Minneapolis and Representative Jordan Rasmussen regarding a proposed amendment to the Minnesota Constitution regarding education and various educational items. Met on November 19th with 6th grade art students and also our teacher, Kate Wolver Martinez, to celebrate the $9,500 grant received from the Lake Region Art Council for the Pelican Rapids downtown mural. Met with Representative Rasmussen, Administrator Solga on November 19th regarding funding options for the Pelican Rapids Pool Project. Partook in the downtown Christmas tree lighting on last Friday, November 9th, and yesterday met with Administrator Solga to review the agenda for this afternoon's council meeting. Any questions? Seeing no other business, or motion to adjourn? Second? Motion second, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same? Meeting adjourned.
That was a marathon.
Just on 4:30?
You have lots of things going on, huh?
When's the school board meeting? Is that?
No.